welcome to Tales in the Dark. I know many of you enjoy relaxing with these videos, so I recommend turning down the volume until my voice is barely audible. It'll make the experience even more soothing. Before you close your eyes, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and enjoy listening. Story 1. The hallway outside my apartment was always the same. White walls, scuffed baseboards, a single dim light buzzing overhead. But last night, as I took out the trash, there was a door at the end of the corridor. I had walked this way 100 times, and it had never been there before. The air smelled faintly of something damp and metallic, like rusted hinges. I reached for the handle, but before I could touch it, the light above flickered, and in that split second of darkness, the door was gone. I stood there, garbage bag still in hand, staring at the blank wall where the door had been. The buzzing from the light seemed louder now, more insistent, like the hum of an angry insect. I placed my hand against the wall. The paint felt cool and slightly textured, completely solid. No trace of a door frame, no hint that anything had ever been there. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in my apartment seemed amplified. The gentle whir of my refrigerator, the slow drip of my bathroom faucet, the subtle creaking of the building settling. I grabbed my phone and started recording, walking through each room, documenting everything. The recordings picked up nothing unusual, just the ambient sounds of night. But when I played them back through my headphones, beneath the normal noises, I heard something else. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails on wood. The next evening I waited. The hallway remained empty, unchanging, until the moment I turned to go back inside. That's when I caught it in my peripheral vision. The door had returned. This time I was ready. I had my phone out, camera recording. But when I reviewed the footage later, the screen showed only a blank wall, even though I could see the door clearly with my naked eye. I began taking notes, documenting every detail. The door was made of dark wood, weathered but solid, with an old brass handle that seemed to catch non-existent light. No numbers marked it, no identifying features except for a small carved symbol near the top, a series of interlocking circles that made my eyes hurt if I looked at them too long. My neighbors never mentioned the door. When I asked the building manager about it, she gave me an odd look and said there had never been any renovations to that section of the hallway. But I noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she spoke, how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. The door began appearing more frequently, sometimes during the day, but mostly at night, when the hallway light buzzed its endless drone. Each time, I felt drawn to it, my hand reaching for the handle before I could stop myself. Each time, it would vanish before I made contact. I started setting up my laptop to record the hallway while I slept. The footage showed nothing unusual until night 7. At exactly the midpoint of the recording, the audio cut out completely. The video continued, but in total silence. And there, in the corner of the frame, a shadow moved, not cast by anything visible, just darkness taking shape, flowing like water across the floor. The smell of rust grew stronger. It clung to my clothes, my furniture, my skin. No amount of cleaning would remove it. My dreams became filled with the sound of that tapping, growing louder, more urgent. In them I would find myself standing before the door, my hand on the handle, knowing that this time it wouldn't disappear. I began to notice other changes. The mirrors in my apartment reflected things a fraction of a second too late. Objects would shift position when I wasn't looking directly at them. Nothing dramatic, just subtle alterations in their placement. My phone started picking up strange frequencies, bursts of static that almost sounded like words. One morning, I found a series of marks on my bedroom wall, like someone had been scratching at it from the other side. When I pressed my ear against the surface, I could hear a faint humming, different from the hallway light, deeper, more organic. The wall felt warm to the touch, and beneath my palm, I swore I could feel something pulsing. I tried to leave, packed a bag, called a friend to stay with. But as I approached the building's exit, the door appeared there instead of its usual spot, blocking my path. No matter which direction I turned, which stairwell or elevator I took, that door was always there, waiting. The building manager stopped responding to my calls. My neighbors' faces became blank when I tried to speak to them about it. Even my friend's voice sounded distant and distorted over the phone, as if the connection was being filtered through something else. I started sleeping in shifts, afraid of what might happen if I closed my eyes for too long. In my waking moments, I wrote everything down, filled notebooks with observations and theories. The pages began to smell of rust too, and sometimes the words would rearrange themselves when I looked away. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. It followed me from room to room, no longer just in recordings, but in the air itself. Sometimes it formed patterns, not Morse code, but something older, something that made my teeth ache when I tried to decipher it. Last night, something changed. The door appeared as usual, but this time it stayed. The hallway light didn't flicker. The handle didn't vanish when I reached for it. And now I'm standing here, my hand hovering over the brass fitting, feeling its cold welcome against my skin. The smell of rust is overwhelming, metallic and alive. The tapping has stopped for the first time in weeks, replaced by a deep, expectant silence. I know I shouldn't open it. Every instinct screams against it, but the door is changing. The wood seems to breathe, expanding and contracting like lungs. The carved circles at the top are moving, spinning slowly, drawing my gaze deeper into their impossible geometry. And I can feel something on the other side, waiting, patient, knowing that I have no choice but to turn the handle. My fingers wrap around the cold brass. The metal pulses beneath my grip, like a heart beating in sync with my own. I begin to turn it, feeling the mechanism catch and release. The door opens inward, toward a darkness that seems to stretch forever. And as I step through, I realize that the rust smell wasn't rust at all. It was blood. Not fresh blood, but old, ancient. The kind that has soaked into wood and stone until it becomes part of their structure. I don't know where I am now. The space around me shifts and changes with each breath. But I can still see my apartment door behind me, growing more distant with each passing moment. And somewhere ahead, in the endless dark, I hear the sound of another door opening. All I know is this: if you ever find yourself in a familiar hallway, and notice a door that wasn't there before, don't reach for the handle. Don't look too long at the circles carved into the wood. And whatever you do, don't record the sounds it makes in the night. Because once you start listening, once you start documenting, once you let yourself acknowledge its existence, it will never stop appearing. And eventually, like me, you'll have no choice but to see what waits on the other side. Story 2. I had always loved the view from my bedroom window. A quiet street, a line of houses, the familiar porch light across the way. But one evening, as I glanced outside, the street was different. The houses were taller, darker, their windows empty like hollow eyes. The porch light was gone. Instead, a single figure stood motionless on the sidewalk, facing my window. The scent of rain hung in the air, though the pavement was bone dry. I blinked and everything was back to normal, almost. At first I dismissed it as fatigue, a trick of light playing with my tired mind, but something felt wrong about the window itself. The glass seemed thicker, as if an extra layer had been added while I wasn't looking. When I pressed my palm against it, the surface felt warm, almost feverish, despite the autumn chill outside. I started keeping notes in my phone, documenting these subtle changes. The houses across the street would shift slightly, like pieces on a game board moved by an unseen hand. The familiar blue house became gray, then blue again. The neighbor's white picket fence grew taller by inches, then shrank back to normal. Small changes, easy to doubt, impossible to prove. my phone started picking up strange frequencies. When I recorded the silence of my room, playing it back revealed a low, continuous hum, punctuated by what sounded like whispered conversations in a language I couldn't identify. The recordings became distorted, the whispers more distinct, until they seemed to be calling my name. The figure appeared again, always at the edge of my vision. Standing perfectly still, wearing what looked like a dark coat that moved wrong in the wind. When I tried to focus on it directly, my eyes would slide away, as if repelled by some invisible force. But in reflections, in mirrors, in the screen of my phone, in the polished surface of my desk, I could see it clearly. It never moved, yet somehow it was always closer. I began photographing the view from my window obsessively. Each image showed subtle differences, shadows that bent the wrong way, lights that shouldn't exist, and sometimes, in the background, barely visible, that same dark figure. In one photo, taken at what should have been midday, the sky appeared pitch black, yet the street was perfectly illuminated. In another, all the houses were mirror images of themselves, reversed in impossible ways. The changes accelerated. I noticed my bedroom walls vibrating with a subtle frequency that made my teeth ache. The paint began to ripple like water, though it remained solid to the touch. The mirror on my closet door reflected a room that was similar to mine but wrong. Furniture arranged differently, books I didn't own on the shelves, a bed that looked slept in when mine was made. One night, unable to sleep, I heard a tapping sound from the window. When I looked, I saw myself standing outside, staring in. Not a reflection. I was sitting on my bed, but my other self stood on the sidewalk, wearing clothes I didn't own, with an expression I'd never seen on my own face. When I moved, it didn't mirror my actions. Instead, it raised its hand and pressed it against the glass from the outside. Without thinking, I placed my hand against the window to match. The glass was ice cold now, and I could feel something pulling, like a current running through my arm. The world outside began to shift and twist, houses stretching up into impossible shapes, the sky folding in on itself like origami. The figure in the dark coat stood behind my other self, its form finally clear, a void in the shape of a person, bending light around its edges. I tried to pull my hand away, but it stuck to the glass as if magnetized. The cold spread up my arm, into my chest, freezing my breath in my lungs. My other self smiled, and in that smile I saw something ancient and patient, something that had been waiting behind that window for a very long time. The glass began to soften under my palm, becoming fluid like mercury. My hand sank into it, and I felt fingers from the other side intertwining with mine. Not my fingers, too long, too cold, too many of them. I screamed, but the sound came from outside, from my other self's mouth, distorted and wrong. I yanked back with all my strength. The window shattered, not into pieces, but into droplets that hung suspended in the air like frozen rain. Each droplet contained a different reflection. My room, the wrong room, the figure, my other self, the twisted houses, all fragmenting and multiplying like fractals. When reality reasserted itself, I was lying on my bedroom floor, surrounded by normal broken glass. The window was empty, showing the familiar street, the normal houses, the regular porch light. But my hand, the one that had touched the glass, was marked. Not with cuts or scars, but with a pattern like frost on a winter window, branching under my skin in delicate silvery lines. The pattern grows a little each day, spreading slowly up my arm. Sometimes I catch it moving in the corner of my eye, forming shapes that almost make sense, almost spell out words in a language I'm starting to understand. Sometimes, when I look into mirrors now, my reflection takes a moment too long to move. And sometimes, in that hesitation, I see a familiar smile starting to form on my face. Patient, ancient, waiting. The window has been replaced, the glass looks normal, but now I know that windows aren't barriers. They're portals, half reflective and half transparent, neither here nor there. They're the places where reality wears thin, where what we think we know about the world starts to unravel. I keep the curtains closed now, but it doesn't help. Because the worst part isn't the window, or the figure, or even my slowly transforming hand. The worst part is that I'm starting to want to look again. I'm starting to want to press my other hand against the glass. I'm starting to wonder if, this time, I should let go of this side and slip into that other world entirely. But for now, I sit in my room, writing this warning. If you ever look out your window and see something wrong, something different, even for a moment, don't try to prove it. Don't document it. And whatever you do, don't touch the glass. Because windows work both ways, and something is always, always looking back. Story 3. When we bought the house, the inspector assured us it had 3 bedrooms. But while setting up the furniture, I found a 4th door at the end of the hall. I assumed it led to storage, but inside was a fully furnished room, dusty but untouched, as if waiting for someone to return. A faint scent of lavender and something stale lingered in the air. There were no signs of recent life, yet the bed was neatly made, and a single cup of cold tea sat on the nightstand. I stepped inside, running my fingers along the wooden dresser. The surface was smooth, worn by years of use, but covered in a thick layer of dust that clung to my skin. My footprints marked the carpet behind me, revealing its original deep burgundy color beneath the gray patina of time. The walls were adorned with empty picture frames, their glass clouded but intact. The cup on the nightstand drew me closer. The liquid inside was dark, viscous, with an oily sheen that caught the light from the window. When I picked it up, the bottom was warm against my palm, despite the room's chill. I set it down quickly, wiping my hand on my jeans. That night, I couldn't sleep. The knowledge of that room pressed against my mind like a weight. I got up to check the house's blueprints again, spreading them across the kitchen table. My finger traced the upstairs hallway. Master bedroom, 2 smaller bedrooms, bathroom, no 4th room. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the inspection photos. The hallway ended at the 3rd bedroom, the wall solid and unbroken where the mystery door now stood. In the morning, I decided to document everything. I took photos of the room with my phone, but when I reviewed them, the images were strangely blurred, as if captured in motion despite my steady hands. The cup of tea appeared as a dark smudge, and the empty picture frames reflected impossible angles of the room. I started keeping a journal. The first entry was simple: room discovered, not on blueprints, fully furnished, cup of tea. But as days passed, the entries became more detailed, more urgent. The tea in the cup never evaporated. The dust I wiped away returned by morning in the exact same pattern. And sometimes, when I walked past the door, I heard humming, a gentle, melodic sound that stopped the moment I turned the handle. I began spending more time in the room, sitting in the old armchair by the window, watching. The view outside didn't match what I knew should be there. Instead of our backyard, I saw an endless field of tall grass, swaying in a wind I couldn't feel. The grass seemed to move in patterns, like waves on an ocean, forming shapes that almost made sense before dissolving back into chaos. The empty picture frames started to change. At first, I thought it was a trick of light, but no. The clouded glass slowly cleared, revealing fragments of images. A hand here, a shadow there, a curl of smoke frozen in midair. I tried to photograph these too, but my phone would shut down every time I aimed it at the frames. One morning, I found my journal open on the room's desk, though I distinctly remembered leaving it downstairs. New words had appeared in my handwriting, but I hadn't written them. The tea is still warm. Why is the tea still warm? I touched the cup. It was indeed warm. I began to notice other changes throughout the house. The hallway leading to the room seemed to stretch longer when I walked toward the door, only to snap back to its normal length when I turned around. The lavender scent grew stronger, mixing with something metallic that made my throat tight. The humming became more frequent, forming a melody I caught myself whistling without realizing it. I tried to seal the room. I locked the door, but it would be open when I returned. I nailed it shut, but the nails fell out, unmarred, leaving no holes behind. I bricked up the entrance, only to find the bricks neatly stacked in the corner of the room the next day, not a speck of mortar on them. The room was changing me. I started finding dust on my clothes, even when I hadn't entered that day. My reflection in mirrors showed shadows under my eyes that didn't match the ones on my face. When I spoke, my voice had a subtle echo, as if I were speaking in two places at once. I tried to document these changes too, but the words in my journal kept shifting. Sentences I wrote about the room would transform into descriptions of my own deteriorating state. The dust is everywhere now. It's in my lungs. I can feel it settling. My photos showed me standing in places I'd never been, holding the teacup I never dared to touch again. The picture frames continued their slow revelation. The fragments formed scenes I almost recognized. A woman sitting in the armchair, a child playing on the carpet, a man standing at the window watching the impossible grass. But their faces remained obscured, as if someone had carefully erased them from existence. The humming grew into words I could almost understand. They seemed to call from just behind my shoulder, but when I turned, the sound moved with me, always just out of reach. The melody became a constant companion, weaving through my dreams, following me into the waking world until I couldn't tell which was which. I found myself drawn to the armchair more and more, watching the grass outside form its mysterious patterns. Sometimes I thought I saw figures walking through the field, their forms bending and swaying with the grass until they became indistinguishable from it. Were they coming toward the house or walking away? I could never tell. My journal's final entry wasn't written by me, though it bears my signature. The room was waiting. It's still waiting. The tea is warm, and soon someone new will come to drink it. Now I sit in the armchair watching the grass sway. The cup of tea sits on the table beside me, steam rising in lazy spirals. The dust has settled on my skin like a second layer, and the humming has become my voice. The picture frames show new scenes, a future owner discovering this room, their face clear where mine is now obscured. I should leave, should run, should burn this place to the ground. But the room holds me like a lover, like a prison, like a promise. The tea is still warm, and I finally understand why. It was never meant for me to drink. I was meant to become part of this place, to join the watchful silence behind the glass, to add my own hollow melody to the humming. So I wait, covered in dust that never fully settles, surrounded by frames that tell stories without endings. And somewhere down the hall, reality bends and stretches, preparing to guide another curious soul to this door that shouldn't exist, to this room that waits with infinite patience for its next observer to become its next exhibit. Story 4. The field behind my grandmother's house had always been empty, just miles of tall grass swaying in the wind. But as I walked past it one evening, I heard whispers, not the wind, not rustling leaves, whispers, low and urgent, shifting in and out of focus. The scent of damp earth and wildflowers filled my lungs as I took a step closer. The whispers stopped. The grass remained still. And then, as I turned to leave, a single voice called my name. I froze mid-step, my heart thundering against my ribs. The voice had been clear, familiar somehow, yet I couldn't place it. My fingers trembled as I pulled out my phone and started recording, holding it out toward the field. The screen showed nothing but gently swaying grass, golden in the fading light. "Hello?" I called out, my voice steady despite the chill crawling up my spine. The grass rustled, though no breeze stirred the air. The recording picked up a strange static, a low hum that seemed to pulse in rhythm with my breathing. That night I couldn't sleep. The whispers had lodged themselves in my mind, an echo that wouldn't fade. I played the recording over and over, pressing my headphones closer to my ears, straining to catch something, anything, in that static. At first I heard nothing unusual, but then, in one section, buried beneath layers of white noise, I caught what sounded like words. "Come back. We need you." The next morning, I returned to the field, armed with better recording equipment borrowed from my grandmother's dusty storage room. The morning dew soaked through my shoes as I set up the microphone. The grass looked different in the pale light, taller somehow, more dense. As I adjusted the settings, a sweet, cloying scent drifted past, like overripe fruit left in the sun. The recordings captured more than whispers this time. Beneath the ambient sounds of nature, I detected what seemed like conversations, multiple voices speaking in overlapping patterns. Some sounded young, others old, but all carried an urgent undertone that made my skin prickle. I began documenting everything in a notebook. The way the temperature dropped several degrees whenever the voices grew stronger. The strange patterns in the grass that appeared and disappeared. Perfect circles that formed when no one was watching. The way my phone's battery would drain completely within minutes of entering the field, no matter how fully charged it was. My grandmother noticed my obsession, but said nothing. I caught her watching me from her kitchen window as I made my daily trips to the field, her expression unreadable. When I asked her about the field's history, she would change the subject, her hands fidgeting with her apron strings. The voices grew bolder. They began calling out specific details from my life. Names of childhood friends, fragments of memories I'd nearly forgotten. They whispered about a loss I'd never shared, about the day my father disappeared when I was young. Things no stranger could know. I started finding items in the grass. A child's drawing, the paper weathered but still showing bright crayon marks. A tarnished pocket watch that matched the description of one my father used to carry. A hair ribbon identical to one I'd lost decades ago. Each object felt wrong in my hands, simultaneously familiar and alien, like artifacts from a life I'd never lived. The field began appearing in my dreams. In them, the grass would part to reveal paths leading deeper and deeper, where shadows moved with purpose and the whispers formed complete sentences. Each morning I'd wake with dirt under my fingernails, though I had no memory of walking in my sleep. I set up a camera to monitor my room at night. The footage showed nothing unusual until the third night, when the screen filled with static at precisely midnight. When the image cleared, my bed was empty. The next segment showed me returning at dawn, my clothes pristine, despite the mud caked on my feet. The grass started responding to my presence. It would bend away as I walked, creating perfect paths that led me deeper into the field. The sweet smell grew stronger, mixing with an underlying metallic tang that reminded me of old pennies. Temperature variations became more extreme. Patches of frost would form in the middle of warm days, melting away as soon as I tried to photograph them. My grandmother finally broke her silence. Over morning coffee, her hands shaking, she pulled out an old photograph. It showed the field, but different. The grass was shorter, and in the center stood a house I'd never seen before. "That's where they lived," she whispered. "The ones who whisper, the ones who never left." I asked her to explain, but she just shook her head and pressed the photo into my hands. As I touched it, the image seemed to shift, the house fading in and out like a mirage. When I blinked, the photo showed only the empty field, as it had always been. The voices changed their message. "Join us. Complete the circle. Make it right." They spoke in harmony now, a chorus that resonated in my bones. The grass grew taller, reaching well above my head, and the paths it formed began creating complex patterns I recognized from my dreams. I found myself standing in the field one evening, though I had no memory of walking there. The air felt thick, charged with potential. The grass swayed in perfect synchronization, forming a spiral pattern that centered on the spot where the house had stood in the photograph. As I walked toward the center, the whispers rose to a crescendo. The ground beneath my feet began to vibrate. The sweet metallic smell became overwhelming. I felt something brush against my hand, fingers, cold but solid, intertwining with mine. The touch was achingly familiar. My father's hand, just as I remembered it. I looked down but saw only grass. Yet the pressure remained, gentle but insistent, tugging me forward. Other hands joined the first, small ones, large ones, smooth and rough, warm and cold. The whispers surrounded me, no longer threatening but welcoming, calling me home. My grandmother found my notebook the next morning, its pages filled with increasingly frantic observations and drawings. She added it to her collection, tucking it away in a box that held other notebooks, other records spanning back generations. Each one documented the same whispers, the same patterns, the same inexorable pull. The field remains empty now, its grass swaying gently in the wind. But sometimes, if you listen carefully, you might hear a new voice among the whispers. It calls out to passing strangers, sharing secrets, offering answers, inviting them to step closer, ever closer, into the endless grass where lost things gather and whispers become song. Those who know better say the field has always been empty. They say the grass grows no differently than in any other field. They say the whispers are just the wind. But they never walk past it in the evening, when the light grows dim and the air grows thick with possibility. They never hear their names called in voices they almost recognize, promising answers to questions they never dared to ask. And they never see me, standing among the swaying stalks, my hands outstretched, adding my whispers to the chorus, waiting for someone else to complete our circle. Story 5. The antique shop was filled with oddities, faded photographs, cracked porcelain, forgotten trinkets. But the painting caught my eye. It was unfinished. A landscape of a forest, its trees only half formed, shadows creeping along the edges. When I returned the next day, the painting had changed. The trees were taller now, and there was a path winding through them. The air smelled faintly of wet paint and something else, something earthy, as if the forest was growing beyond the frame. I bought it without hesitation. The shop owner seemed eager to part with it, wrapping it carefully in brown paper that felt unusually damp against my fingers. As I carried it home, the package grew heavier with each step, the paper rustling against my chest like autumn leaves. In my living room, I hung it on the wall opposite my workspace. The forest in the painting looked different under my lights, deeper, more alive. The half-formed trees had gained definition, their branches reaching toward the edges of the frame. A cold draft whispered across my skin, and I could swear I heard the soft crackle of twigs breaking underfoot. That night, while working at my desk, I noticed something peculiar. The shadows in the painting seemed to shift whenever I looked away, as if the trees were swaying in a phantom breeze. I started taking notes, documenting the changes. At first they were subtle, new leaves here, darker shadows there. But soon, the alterations became more pronounced. The path that wound through the trees began to narrow, choked by undergrowth that hadn't existed before. The branches grew twisted, forming shapes that reminded me of grasping hands. And the shadows, they deepened, pooling in places where they shouldn't, defying the laws of light and perspective. I set up my phone to record the painting while I slept. The footage showed nothing unusual, just the static image in the dark. But when I played it back with headphones, beneath the white noise of my apartment, I could hear something that made my skin crawl. The soft whisper of wind through leaves, the distant snap of branches, and underneath it all, a sound like footsteps moving closer, then farther away, then closer again. My obsession grew. I began photographing the painting every morning and evening, comparing the images side by side. The changes were undeniable. The forest was expanding, consuming more of the canvas, filling in the blank spaces with dark vegetation that seemed to writhe when viewed from the corner of my eye. One morning I discovered a new detail that made my breath catch in my throat. Among the trees, barely visible in the deepest shadows, stood a figure. It was little more than a suggestion, a darker shape against the darkness, but I knew it was looking at me. I covered the painting with a sheet, but the fabric would never stay in place, always sliding to the floor when I wasn't watching. The sounds grew louder. At night, the rustle of leaves became a constant whisper, and the footsteps grew more distinct. They seemed to pace the length of my wall, back and forth, always behind the painting. I pressed my ear against the wall and heard something that shouldn't be possible. The sound of twigs snapping and leaves crunching, as if a whole forest lived within my plaster. My dreams changed too. I found myself walking down that painted path, deeper into the forest. The trees loomed impossibly tall, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out all light. In these dreams, I could smell the decay of fallen leaves and feel the damp earth beneath my feet. And always, there were eyes watching from the shadows. I tried to get rid of the painting. I carried it to the dumpster behind my building, but when I returned to my apartment, it was hanging on the wall again, the forest darker and deeper than before. I attempted to burn it, but the flames wouldn't catch. Instead, they danced across the surface like fireflies, casting strange shadows that made the trees seem to dance. The figure in the painting began to move. At first, it was only when I wasn't looking directly at it, a dark shape flitting between trees in my peripheral vision. But soon it grew bolder. I would find it in different positions each morning, always closer to the foreground, always more defined. Its form remained shadowy, but I could make out long, branch-like fingers and a head that tilted at an impossible angle. I started sleeping in my car, but distance brought no relief. Every morning, my phone would be filled with notifications from my security cameras. The footage showed the painting changing in real time, branches swaying, shadows flowing like water, and that figure, that terrible figure, pressing against the canvas as if testing its boundaries. My skin began to change. Small scratches appeared on my arms and legs, resembling the patterns of bark. When I looked in the mirror, I saw dark circles under my eyes that branched out across my skin like tiny root systems. The smell of earth and decay followed me everywhere, clinging to my clothes and hair. The day I noticed moss growing in the corners of my room, I knew I had to end it. I took a knife to the canvas, prepared to destroy it once and for all. But as the blade touched the surface, something reached back. The figure's branch-like fingers burst through the painting, wrapping around my wrist with the strength of ancient wood. I felt myself being pulled forward, the canvas stretching and distorting like a mouth opening wide. The smell of rotting leaves filled my lungs as the forest reached out to claim me. The last thing I saw was my own face reflected in the glass of the frame, my features changing, becoming something else, something that belonged among the trees. Now I stand among the shadows, watching through the frame of what was once a painting. Someone new has moved into my apartment. They've redecorated everything except for this wall, where a landscape of a forest hangs. It's unfinished, just like before, with trees only half formed and shadows creeping along the edges. But if you look closely, in the deepest part of the forest, you might see a figure. It has my shape, but its fingers are long like branches, and its head tilts at an impossible angle. I watch as they approach the painting, drawn by something they don't understand. Their fingers trace the frame, and I feel their touch like electricity through ancient wood. They'll be back tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. And the forest will grow, just as it always has, just as it always will. In the darkness behind me, the footsteps have started again. They're coming closer, and I know that soon I won't be the only one watching through the frame. The forest is patient, and it's always hungry for more colors to add to its canvas, more shadows to join its eternal dance. I try to warn them, to reach through the barrier between our worlds, but all they hear is the whisper of wind through leaves. All they feel is the cold draft that makes them pull their collar tight. They don't understand yet that some paintings are never truly finished, that some forests never stop growing, that some frames hold more than just art. They will learn, as I did. The forest will teach them, one brushstroke at a time, until they too become part of this masterpiece of shadows and silence, where every tree has eyes and every path leads deeper into the dark. Story 6. The lot at the edge of town had been empty for as long as anyone could remember, just a stretch of dirt and weeds. But one morning as I drove past, the foundation of a house had appeared. No workers, no trucks, just concrete poured as if by unseen hands. The next time I passed, the walls were up. The scent of fresh wood lingered in the air, though no one had seen a single nail hammered. By the end of the week, it was a complete home, and the front door was wide open. I couldn't explain why I pulled over that day. Something about the house seemed to beckon, like a finger curling inward in invitation. The gravel crunched under my feet as I approached, each step carrying me closer to what I now realize was the beginning of my undoing. The house appeared normal enough, a two-story structure with clean lines and modern design. Yet something felt off about its proportions, as if it had been built from a blueprint that didn't quite follow the rules of geometry. The windows reflected the sky at impossible angles, and the shadows they cast seemed to move independently of the sun. Standing before the open door, I noticed the wood grain of the frame swirled in patterns that made my eyes hurt if I looked too long. A cool breeze whispered from within, carrying a scent I couldn't identify, something between fresh paint and aged wood, with an underlying metallic tang that reminded me of blood. I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped inside. The interior was furnished, though I couldn't recall seeing any delivery trucks. Each room contained perfectly arranged furniture, but nothing showed signs of human touch. No slight indentations in the cushions, no scuffs on the hardwood floors. The air felt thick, as if the house itself was holding its breath. In the kitchen, I found cabinets stocked with plates and glasses, each item placed with mathematical precision. When I opened the refrigerator, it hummed at a pitch that made my teeth ache. Inside, fresh food sat untouched, though I hadn't seen anyone bring groceries. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The screen showed only static, but beneath the electronic noise, I could have sworn I heard someone whispering my name. I tried to record the sound, but my recordings contained nothing but silence when played back. As I explored the second floor, I noticed something peculiar about the walls. When I pressed my palm against them, I felt a subtle vibration, like a heartbeat. The sensation grew stronger in certain spots, as if the house was responding to my touch. I began mapping these points, marking them with sticky notes I found in a desk drawer. The pattern that emerged made no sense until I stepped back and saw it resembled a face, stretched and distorted across the entire floor plan. That's when the changes began. I started documenting everything. The way the doorways seemed to widen slightly when I approached and contract after I passed through. How the stairs added or subtracted steps between climbs. The persistent feeling that the rooms were rearranging themselves when I wasn't looking. My recordings captured nothing but static, yet playing them backward revealed what sounded like construction noises. Hammering, sawing, drilling, though the house was already complete. I took photographs, but they developed wrong. The angles didn't match what I saw, and shadows fell in directions that contradicted each other. The house began to feel like a living thing, studying me as much as I studied it. Objects moved between visits. Not dramatically. A chair turned slightly, a book shifted on its shelf, a door left ajar. But I started marking their positions with chalk, confirming my suspicions. The house was learning, adapting, changing itself in subtle ways. I brought in measuring tools, but the dimensions never matched twice. Rooms expanded and contracted like lungs. Windows appeared where there had been none, only to vanish on my next visit. The house was growing, evolving, becoming something else entirely. My obsession grew. I spent every free moment documenting the changes, creating detailed logs of my observations. The patterns in the wood grain began appearing in my dreams, swirling and shifting until they formed words I could almost read. The humming from the refrigerator followed me home, resonating in my bones. One day, I noticed my own furniture had begun to shift slightly between glances. The walls of my apartment seemed less solid, more permeable. I pressed my hand against them and felt that same subtle vibration. The house was spreading, infecting other structures with its impossible geometry. I tried to warn others, but they couldn't see it. To them, the house remained a normal structure, unremarkable in every way. But I knew better. I had watched it build itself, had felt its pulse beneath my fingers, had seen the way it bent reality around itself like a gravitational lens. The final turning point came when I found the basement door. It hadn't been there before. I was certain of that. It stood slightly ajar, revealing stairs that descended into darkness. The air that wafted up carried that same metallic scent, stronger now, mixed with the smell of fresh concrete and something organic, like growing mold. I stood at the top of those stairs for what felt like forever, my flashlight beam swallowed by the darkness below. The vibrations in the walls had grown stronger, more insistent, almost like a beckoning. The house wanted me to descend. The decision to take that first step changed everything. Each stair creaked beneath my weight, but the sound was wrong, too hollow, too resonant, as if the space below was vastly larger than the house's footprint should allow. The air grew thicker as I descended, and my flashlight beam seemed to curve, illuminating impossible angles. What I found in that basement defied explanation. The foundation wasn't made of concrete, but of something that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. The walls pulsed with visible veins of light, and the floor seemed to breathe beneath my feet. In the center of the room stood a pillar of swirling wood grain, its patterns matching the ones from my dreams. As I approached the pillar, the house made its true nature known. The stairs behind me disappeared, replaced by smooth wall. The ceiling began to lower, and the room started to fold in on itself, like a piece of living origami. The patterns in the pillar writhed and formed into clear words. Welcome home. I ran, through corridors that shouldn't exist, upstairs that formed beneath my feet and dissolved behind me, past windows that showed impossible landscapes. When I finally burst through the front door, the house had changed completely. It now stood 3 stories tall, its architecture a violation of every natural law. I haven't returned to that lot since then, but the house hasn't finished with me. My walls continue to shift when I'm not looking. Doors in my apartment lead to different rooms than they did the day before. The wood grain in my furniture writhes with hidden messages. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear the sound of construction, hammering, sawing, drilling. But it's not coming from outside. It's coming from inside the walls, growing closer, spreading like a cancer through the building's structure. The house that built itself wasn't just a house. It was a seed, and I helped it take root. Now I lie awake, listening to the sounds of invisible construction crews remaking the world around me, one wall at a time. And I wonder, when the transformation is complete, will there be anything left of our reality at all? The front door of my apartment stands open now, though I know I locked it. Beyond it, I see a familiar hallway that shouldn't be there, one with shifting walls and impossible angles. And despite everything I know, despite every instinct screaming at me to run, I feel my feet carrying me forward. After all, the house is calling, and this time, I think it's calling for everyone. Story 7. It started with a faint dripping sound in the bathroom sink, nothing unusual. But then late at night I began to hear something else, a voice, low and distant, murmuring beneath the pipes. The scent of mildew and rusted metal clung to the air as I pressed my ear closer, straining to make out the words. A single drop of water splashed against the porcelain, and for the first time I understood what it was saying. Let me out. I pulled back, my heart pounding against my ribs. The rational part of my mind insisted it was just the peculiar acoustics of old plumbing, but something about those words felt deliberate, conscious. I switched on my phone's voice recorder and held it near the drain. The soft plink of water droplets filled the recording, but when I played it back, beneath the steady rhythm, a whisper emerged. Please, I'm still here. The recording should have frightened me more than it did. Instead, I felt an odd compulsion to understand, to help. I began documenting everything in a notebook. The times the voice spoke, what it said, the changing patterns of the drips. The pages filled with transcriptions, observations, and questions that grew increasingly desperate for answers. My bathroom became a research station. I installed a small microphone near the drain, connected to my laptop for continuous recording. The voice grew stronger, more frequent. It would call out in what seemed like patterns, 3 whispers, then silence, then 2 more. Sometimes it hummed melodies I almost recognized, songs that felt like memories from a dream. The smell changed too. The musty scent of mildew gave way to something sweeter, like rain-soaked flowers mixed with copper. When I touched the faucet, it felt warm despite being turned off, as though something beneath was generating heat. The mirror began to fog, even when I hadn't showered, forming patterns that looked almost like writing before fading away. I stopped using the sink for anything but recording. Water down the drain seemed to agitate whatever dwelled there. The voice would become distorted, angry, sending vibrations through the pipes that I could feel through the floor. My other faucet started responding in kind. The kitchen sink gurgled with whispers. The shower head dripped Morse code messages I couldn't quite decode. The walls of my home felt different under my fingers, thrumming with a subtle pulse that matched the rhythm of the dripping. In quiet moments, I could swear I felt the entire structure breathing. The voice began appearing in other sounds, the hum of my refrigerator, the whir of my laptop fan, the static between radio stations. Always asking to be released, always promising to show me something wonderful if I would just help. I started sleeping in the bathroom, curled up against the cold tile with my recorder running. The voice grew intimate, sharing secrets in the dark. It told me about the spaces between walls, the hollow places beneath foundations where reality wore thin. It described a world of liquid geometry and non-Euclidean architecture that existed just beyond the membrane of our dimension, separated only by the thickness of a pipe. My dreams became saturated with water. I would wake with my clothes damp, though no faucet had been running. The bathroom mirror reflected versions of me that moved a fraction of a second too slow, their eyes following paths that didn't quite match my own. The voice began to sound familiar, as though I'd known it all my life. I started noticing changes in my own reflection. My skin had taken on a slick, almost pearlescent quality. In certain lights I could see patterns beneath it, like ripples on the surface of a pond. My eyes seemed deeper, darker, with something moving in their depths. When I spoke, my voice carried echoes that lingered too long in the air. The breaking point came when I found my notebook filled with writing I didn't remember. Pages of text in my own hand, but the words were wrong. They shifted and flowed on the paper like ink underwater. Reading them gave me headaches that felt like pressure building behind my eyes. The voice had begun writing through me. I tried to leave then. Packed a bag and walked out the front door. But every puddle reflected that other world. Every storm drain whispered my name. The voice had spread beyond my home, following me through the water that flows beneath every street, every building. I could hear it in drinking fountains, in sprinklers, in the condensation that beaded on windows. When I returned home, the bathroom mirror had become a window, not into a reflection of our world, but into somewhere else, a place of curved surfaces and impossible angles, where water flowed upward and light bent in ways that hurt to look at. My reflection reached out, its movements no longer matching my own, and pressed its hand against the other side of the glass. The voice was crystal clear now, no longer coming from the drain, but from my own throat. It spoke of unity, of dissolution, of becoming something greater than the sum of our separate selves. The mirror me smiled with too many teeth, and I understood that it had never been trapped at all. It had been waiting, calling, preparing me for this moment. I haven't left the bathroom since then. The boundaries between me and my reflection continue to blur. Water beads on my skin from the inside out. The voice speaks through me more often than not now, and I can feel myself becoming something new, something that exists in the spaces between solid and liquid, between here and elsewhere. Sometimes people knock on my door, concerned neighbors or friends I no longer recognize. I want to warn them about the voices in their own drains, about the water that watches and waits in every pipe. But when I open my mouth, all that comes out is the sound of dripping. The mirror stands ready, a threshold rather than a barrier now. Soon I will step through, or perhaps I already have. The water is rising, the voice is singing, and I can no longer tell which side of the drain I'm on. All I know is that something is still whispering, "Let me out." And I'm no longer sure if it's trying to get out of the pipes or out of me. Story 8. The basement had always been a place I avoided, cold, damp, filled with forgotten boxes. But today, while cleaning, I found a trunk pushed into the farthest corner, covered in dust and locked shut. The wood was splintered in places, as if someone had tried to force it open. A musty scent of aged paper and something faintly metallic filled the air. As I ran my fingers over the lock, I felt a pulse, a slow, rhythmic thump, like a heartbeat trapped inside. I convinced myself it was just the old pipes in the walls, the house settling, my imagination playing tricks. But when I pressed my ear against the trunk's surface, the beating grew stronger, more insistent. The wood felt warm beneath my touch, despite the basement's perpetual chill. My rational mind said to leave it alone, to continue with the cleaning I'd planned. Instead, I found myself searching through drawers upstairs, looking for anything that might serve as a key. In the kitchen, buried beneath old takeout menus and rubber bands, I discovered a ring of antique keys, their brass dulled with age. Back in the basement, each key I tried yielded nothing but the scrape of metal against metal. The pulsing seemed to quicken with each attempt, as if responding to my frustration. On the final key, something clicked, not in the lock, but inside the trunk itself. A mechanical whirring sound emanated from within, followed by a series of soft clicks that reminded me of someone tapping their fingernails against glass. The air grew thick with an electrical charge that made the hair on my arms stand on end. The basement lights flickered, though not in the usual way that suggested faulty wiring. They dimmed in a pattern, like Morse code or a message I couldn't quite decipher. I began documenting everything on my phone. The pulsing, the clicking, the lights. Even the temperature changes I could feel radiating from the trunk. But when I played back the recordings, I heard something else in the background, a whisper so faint it might have been white noise, except that it seemed to form words. "Found you." My hands trembled as I deleted the recording, but curiosity had already sunk its hooks too deep. I retrieved my toolbox and began working on the lock with a screwdriver. The metal was surprisingly soft, as if something had been corroding it from the inside. Black residue coated my fingers, and no amount of scrubbing would remove it. That night, lying in bed, I could still feel the trunk's warmth on my palms. My dreams were filled with rhythmic thumping and mechanical whispers. I woke to find my hands pressed against the wall, as if searching for a pulse there too. The next morning, I noticed dark smudges on my white sheets, perfect handprints that matched the residue from the trunk's lock. But these weren't just on the bed. They trailed down the hallway wall, leading to the basement door. I hadn't sleepwalked since childhood, yet the evidence suggested otherwise. In the basement, the trunk had moved. Not dramatically, but enough to notice, rotated slightly toward the stairs, like it was watching. The temperature around it had risen enough to create a visible distortion in the air, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. I set up my laptop to record overnight, positioning the camera to capture any movement. The footage revealed nothing unusual until exactly midnight, when the video began to distort. The trunk remained static, but the space around it seemed to bend and twist, as if reality itself was being warped. The basement had become an obsession. I spent hours cataloging every detail. The way the trunk's surface seemed to shift under certain lights, how the beating changed rhythm when I spoke, the strange symbols that began appearing in the dust around it. I covered the walls with notes and diagrams, trying to find patterns in the chaos. My reflection in mirrors started to look wrong. Not obviously at first, just slightly off, like a photograph taken a fraction of a second too late. I began avoiding mirrors altogether, but reflective surfaces seemed to multiply around me. Every window, every screen, every puddle showed me something that wasn't quite right. The trunk's influence spread through the house like a slow infection. Electronic devices began malfunctioning in specific ways. My phone would only display messages in reverse. The television would turn itself on to show nothing but static, though if I recorded the static and played it backward, I could hear what sounded like my own voice reciting numbers. I tried to leave once, packed a bag, booked a hotel, drove away, but every road somehow led back to my street, back to my house, back to the basement. The trunk had created its own gravity, and I was caught in its orbit. Then came the morning I found scratches on the trunk's surface, not the old spling from before, but fresh marks. They formed a pattern that looked like writing, but in no alphabet I recognized. Yet I could read it somehow. The knowledge was there in my mind, as if it had always existed, waiting to be remembered. The message was simple: open me. My hands moved of their own accord, reaching for the lock. The metal was hot now, nearly burning, but I couldn't pull away. The clicking started again, faster than ever, building to a crescendo that filled my head until I could hear nothing else. The lock disintegrated under my touch, crumbling into black powder that moved against gravity, swirling upward in complex spirals. The lid began to rise, revealing absolute darkness within. Not the absence of light, but something deeper, something that seemed to consume light. I felt myself being pulled forward, not physically, but in a way that tugged at something essential inside me. The beating that had once been confined to the trunk now filled the entire basement, synchronizing with my own heartbeat until I couldn't tell which was which. Inside the trunk I saw possibilities, countless versions of myself, each one slightly different, each one making different choices at different moments. They all led here, to this basement, to this trunk, to this choice. I reached inside. The darkness was warm and thick, like liquid silk. It flowed over my hand, up my arm, spreading across my skin in intricate patterns that looked like the scratches on the trunk. My reflection in the basement window showed the changes happening in real time, my form becoming fluid, uncertain, as if I existed in multiple places at once. I should have been terrified, but instead, I felt a strange sense of completion. The trunk hadn't been calling to me. It had been calling back a part of myself I hadn't known was missing. The boundary between my consciousness and whatever dwelled in the trunk began to blur. Now I sit in the basement writing this account. My handwriting keeps shifting between styles I recognize and those I don't. The trunk stands open beside me, its darkness spilling out like fog, rewriting the world in subtle ways. The walls pulse with our shared heartbeat. The lights speak in code I finally understand. I know others will come. They'll find this basement, this trunk, these words. They'll feel the pull, just as I did, and they'll discover what I now know. Some doors once opened transform both the door and the one who opened it. My reflection shows someone who both is and isn't me. The trunk's darkness has become my darkness. Its mysteries, my mysteries. I am still here in the basement, but I am also somewhere else. Everywhere the trunk's influence reaches. Everywhere reality wears thin. And I'm waiting, listening for the next seeker who will find their way here, drawn by the rhythm of a heartbeat that never truly belonged to just one being. The cleaning supplies I brought down that first day still sit untouched in their bucket. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really came down here to clean, or if that was just the story I told myself. The last rational thought before accepting what I'd always been meant to find. The trunk is yours now. Can you feel it calling? Story 9. I had lived in this house for years. I knew every inch of my backyard, the old oak tree, the flower bed, the rusted swing set. But this morning when I stepped outside, the yard was different. A small stone pathway I had never seen before wound through rows of unfamiliar plants. The scent of wet soil and something floral but unrecognizable filled the air. The strangest part, the dew on the leaves hadn't been disturbed, as if no one, not even the wind, had set foot there in years. At first I blamed my memory. Perhaps my wife had hired a landscaper while I was away on business last week. But when I asked her about the changes over breakfast, she looked at me with confusion. "What new pathway? What plants?" she asked, peering through the kitchen window. Her face showed no recognition of what I was describing, even as I pointed directly at the stone path cutting through our yard. That's when the first chill ran down my spine. I walked outside again, this time with my phone to take pictures. The flagstones felt solid beneath my feet. Yet when I reviewed the photos, they showed only our familiar grass lawn. I touched the nearest plant, a tall, twisted thing with leaves like dark leather, and felt its waxy surface under my fingertips. But in the photo, my hand appeared to be grasping at empty air. I started documenting everything. My journal filled with detailed descriptions of the garden's daily changes. The way the plants seemed to shift positions when I wasn't looking. The strange harmonics that vibrated through the ground when I pressed my ear to the earth. The shadows that moved against the direction of the sun. My wife grew increasingly worried about my behavior. She suggested I see someone, get professional help. But how could I explain that the garden was becoming more real to me than our house? That I could smell its peculiar flowers even in my sleep? That I had begun to hear whispers emanating from between the stems, speaking words in a language that felt familiar yet impossible to understand? I set up cameras, motion sensors, recording equipment. The devices would malfunction in bizarre ways. Video recordings showed static and digital artifacts that formed patterns like chromosomes or circuit boards. Audio recordings captured what sounded like my own voice, having conversations I didn't remember, discussing topics I didn't understand, with someone or something whose responses were just below the threshold of hearing. The garden began to change me. I noticed it first in small ways. My reflection seemed delayed by microseconds. My fingerprints left faint phosphorescent trails on everything I touched. When I cut myself shaving, my blood moved like mercury under the skin before breaking the surface. I found myself understanding the whispers more clearly each day, though I could never quite remember what they said after they stopped. My wife left a week ago. She couldn't handle watching me spiral, she said. But I wasn't spiraling, I was transforming. The garden was teaching me its geometry, showing me the angles between spaces that shouldn't exist. I learned to see the patterns in the air, the way reality folded and unfolded like origami made of moments rather than paper. Yesterday, I made a breakthrough. After studying the way the dew gathered on the leaves, always in perfect Fibonacci spirals, I realized the garden wasn't an invasion of our world. Our world was an invasion of its world. We had built our house, our neighborhood, our entire civilization in something else's garden. And now that garden was slowly remembering itself, unfolding back into its original shape. I spend most of my time in the garden now. The house feels like a crude sketch compared to the crystalline reality of the plants. They're not really plants, of course. They're more like thoughts that grew into shapes, ideas that learned to photosynthesize. Sometimes I catch glimpses of other people's yards through the spaces between spaces. Yards that are also remembering their true nature. I see other people like me, their bodies beginning to ripple with internal geometries as they learn to speak the language of leaves and stones. This morning, I noticed my skin has begun to develop patterns that look like frost on a window. When I touch the ground, I can feel the slow pulse of sap moving through a root system that spans dimensions. The whispers have become a constant conversation, teaching me the true names of colors I never knew existed. I should be frightened, but fear requires a kind of certainty about reality that I no longer possess. The garden is patient. It has been here all along, waiting for us to notice the marks it left on our DNA, the memories it planted in our cells. Every night, more of my neighbors' yards remember what they used to be. Every day, more people begin to notice the paths that were always there, hidden behind the thin curtain of what we thought was real. I'm writing this down as a record, though I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to communicate in human language. The garden's dialect is becoming more natural to my transformed tongue. My hands leave trails of light when I write, and the words seem to rearrange themselves when I'm not looking directly at them. If you find this, and if you've begun to notice changes in your own yard, the impossible angles of morning shadows, the way your flowers seem to watch you, the geometric patterns appearing in your skin, don't be afraid. The garden isn't hostile. It's just vast, patient, and very, very old. It's been growing inside us since before we were human, waiting for the right season to bloom. And that season, I believe, has finally arrived. Story 10. In the hushed depths of midnight, as I lay nestled in my bed, a stray echo brushed against my senses, a voice both hauntingly familiar and achingly distant. The soft whir of the air conditioner and the gentle rustle of leaves outside intertwined, forming a spectral melody that stirred memories of a past long thought to be buried. That night, my bedroom seemed to hold a different air, bathed in the mystical glow of moonlight casting silver patterns on the walls, shapes that pulsated with a subtle rhythm. The atmosphere carried a peculiar weight, akin to the pregnant pause before a storm breaks, where all hangs in anticipation. Shadows lingered in the corners, pooling deeper than usual, as if they were gathering to share secrets among themselves. The voice returned, a mere whisper on the edge of perception, reminiscent of wind chimes in a soft breeze, melodic yet tinged with a profound sorrow. Slowly, I sat up, the blanket slipping off my form with a gentle sigh of fabric. The cool solidity of the wooden floor beneath my feet grounded me in reality as my thoughts drifted into the realm of the inexplicable. Each step through my house in the night, usually a familiar routine of muscle memory, now felt laced with an unfamiliar essence. The hallway stretched before me, its walls seemingly absorbing the dim light rather than reflecting it. Family photographs watched me pass with a distant gaze, their once familiar faces now distant and aloof. Guided by the ethereal voice, I found myself drawn to my study, where rows of books lined the walls in silent vigil, their spines a tapestry of muted colors in the darkness. My old reading chair sat empty, yet an expectant aura lingered around it, as if someone had just vacated its comforting embrace. The leather still radiated warmth, and beside it, my grandmother's antique table lamp bathed the room in a soft amber glow, its light pulsing ever so slightly in tandem with the phantom whispers. A peculiar sight caught my eye amidst my collection of vinyl records. One album stood apart, its sleeve bearing the marks of frequent handling. I couldn't recall the last time I had touched it, yet there it sat, a patient messenger awaiting my attention. The dust cover of the record player was lifted, a stark contrast to my memory of closing it the night before. Almost of its own accord, my hand reached out and lifted the record from its sleeve. The vinyl surface caught the lamp's light, creating mesmerizing concentric circles that spiraled towards the center, beckoning me. Placing it on the turntable, the needle found its groove without my intervention, and music began to play, not the expected symphony, but the sound of rain on a tin roof, mingling with distant piano notes that seemed to echo from the depths of time itself. The voice interwove with these haunting melodies, growing more distinct, speaking words that felt like fragmented remnants of a dream. It recounted summer evenings on a porch swing, promises exchanged beneath starlit skies, and the inexorable passage of time slipping through grasp like sand. My grandmother's antique clock ticked steadily in the corner, each swing of the pendulum stretching into eternity. Memories of her surfaced, evenings spent listening to her tales while she stitched, the same lamp casting a warm glow over us. Did she hold knowledge of this voice? Had she left a message for me to decipher now? A subtle shift in the room's temperature created delicate currents of air, making the lamp's light dance in ephemeral patterns. Shadows played tricks, revealing intricate designs reminiscent of the lace doilies my grandmother crafted, secrets woven within their delicate threads. Sinking into the worn embrace of my reading chair, I traced patterns etched into its arms by years of use, following the grooves with a sense of recognition. The books on the shelves seemed to breathe in time with the voice, their contents shifting imperceptibly. One book stood out, a volume of poetry gifted by my grandmother long ago. Its spine glowed faintly in the lamplight, and I realized the voice recited verses I once read to her in her final days. Time flowed like thick honey in winter, laden with meaning yet defying measurement. The voice grew clearer, its rhythmic cadence synchronizing with the pendulum of the clock, weaving a hypnotic tapestry of memory and enigma. As dawn's gray fingers stretched through the window, the voice began to fade, the record spinning in silence, the lamp's light pulsing one last time. In that fleeting moment, a profound understanding washed over me, a revelation about the essence of memory and loss, about how some voices linger, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal their truths. When morning bathed the room in light, I remained in the reading chair, the record player dormant, the lamp extinguished. No evidence remained of the nocturnal experience, save for a book of poetry, its pages annotated delicately by my grandmother. Dream or reality blurred into insignificance compared to the lingering feeling, a connection to something vast and mysterious, yet intimately known. Though the voice had vanished with the night, its echo lingered, a gentle reminder that certain mysteries are meant to be felt, not unraveled, experienced, not explained. In the tranquility that followed, I found solace in the uncertainty, in the liminal space between understanding and curiosity, where the most exquisite mysteries found their home. Story 11. In the stillness of a late night, I found myself drawn to an abandoned arcade on the outskirts of the city. The neon lights blinked erratically, casting fleeting shadows over the forgotten game machines. A soft hum resonated in the air, carrying whispers of bygone laughter and faded thrills. The scent of old popcorn lingered, mingling with the aura of anticipation that seemed to cling to every surface. Tracing my fingers along the dusty arcade cabinets, I felt the years of neglect etched into their plastic shells. Each step stirred up a gentle cloud of gray powder on the floor, marking my path through the silent arcade. As I wandered deeper into the dimly lit space, the artwork on the machines emerged like spectral visions, fantastical realms reduced to mere outlines of their former glory. Some screens flickered weakly, casting ethereal images that danced like wraiths in the darkness. Amidst the eerie ambience, a racing game caught my eye, its leather seat worn and the steering wheel subtly turning on its own accord. The temperature dropped as I ventured further, the hum growing more melodious, as if a distant choir serenading the night. I found myself swaying to the rhythmic pulse of the unseen melody, my breath blending with the electrical hum in a hypnotic symphony. The air crackled with potential, blurring the lines between reality and imagination in this forgotten sanctuary. Exploring a narrow hallway lined with vintage posters of games long past, I felt the ancient floorboards whisper beneath my feet, harmonizing with the mysterious hum that seemed to respond to my presence. At the end of the corridor, a weathered wooden door beckoned, its peeling paint resembling intricate circuitry. The brass handle radiated warmth as I turned it, unleashing a crescendo of humming that enveloped my senses. Beyond the door, a softly illuminated room revealed itself, adorned with arcade motherboards and a vintage computer terminal pulsing with cryptic text. The LED lights blinked in patterns that hinted at hidden meanings, while the hum resonated from the machine, guiding the dust motes in a celestial dance. Drawn to the enigmatic display, I settled into the ancient operator's chair, compelled to partake in the unfolding symphony. The scrolling text on the screen wove tales of forgotten realms and untold dreams, blending game code with ancient wisdom. Fingers poised above the aged keyboard, I typed effortlessly, guided by the rhythmic hum that synchronized with my keystrokes. Time lost its grasp in that ethereal chamber, the blue light seeping into my essence as the humming reverberated within my very bones. When I rose from the chair, a sense of timelessness enveloped me, the hum now a part of my being, guiding my steps through the revitalized arcade. The game cabinets whispered secrets as I passed, their screens shimmering with glimpses of new horizons waiting to be explored. The racing game, once animated, now stood tranquil, depicting a road stretching into infinity under a digital dawn. Exiting the arcade, I glanced back at the neon signs glowing steadily, the once erratic flickering now replaced by a warm, constant light. The hum had transformed into a tranquil purr, a lullaby of the electronic realm at rest. With a knowing certainty, I understood that I would return to this sanctuary of memories and mysteries, lured by the siren song of the deserted arcade. Stepping into the night, the subtle vibration of the hum lingered within me, a quiet echo of the symphony I had become a part of. In the hush before dawn, I can still feel its spectral melody beckoning me, a harmonious blend of remembrance and enigma resonating in the abandoned arcade, forever whispering tales of the night. Story 12. Along a rugged coastline, I found myself drawn to an abandoned lighthouse, standing strong against the crashing waves. Its weathered facade, adorned with fading red paint and crumbling stone, whispered tales of lost sailors and forgotten dreams. The melancholic air wrapped me in a gentle embrace, carrying the weight of bygone memories as the night unfolded. Amidst the howling wind and salty sea breeze, a soft, sorrowful murmur seemed to drift from within the lighthouse, a haunting melody that resonated with the depths of my soul. As my car's headlights illuminated the path leading to the lighthouse, casting long shadows in their wake, I felt compelled to pull over and explore. Each step on the gravel path echoed softly, a rhythmic accompaniment to the symphony of the night. The air was thick with a sense of longing, heavy with the whispers of the past and the secrets of the sea. Delicate spirals of mist danced around the tower's base, ghostly tendrils reaching upward towards the heavens. The unlocked door beckoned me inside with a gentle creak, as if anticipating my arrival. The hinges sang a mournful tune, harmonizing with the whisper that lingered in the air. Stepping into the lighthouse, I was enveloped in the scent of ancient wood, sea salt, and a hint of sweetness, perhaps remnants of the lamp oil that once illuminated this solitary beacon. Ascending the spiral staircase, my hand trailing along the cool metal railing, each footfall reverberated through the hollow chambers of the lighthouse. The worn wooden steps groaned softly in recognition of my presence, bearing witness to the countless souls that had climbed before me. Through salt-crusted windows, I glimpsed the darkening sky painted in hues of deep purples and blues, pulsating with an otherworldly energy. Reaching the keeper's quarters just below the lantern room, I felt time stand still in the dust-filled air. Dust motes twirled in the beam of my flashlight, creating a celestial dance of light and shadow. An open logbook on a simple wooden desk whispered of days long past, its pages yellowed with age and neglect. Yet, it was the gentle sway of a rocking chair by the window that caught my eye, a subtle movement in the stillness of the room. The walls adorned with dozens of photographs revealed a haunting truth. The lighthouse captured in different lights and seasons, always with the same figure gazing out to sea. A woman in a flowing dress, her face turned towards the horizon, a silent sentinel of the night. In each image, she exuded a sense of waiting, watching, and longing. As I ascended to the lantern room, the whisper grew stronger, a spectral echo of a forgotten voice. The massive Fresnel lens dominated the space, refracting the dwindling twilight into a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the room. A haunting melody, pure and sorrowful, began to fill the air, carrying with it the weight of centuries-old yearning and loss. Tears welled in my eyes, touched by the profound sadness that enveloped me. In the reflection of the pristine lens, I caught a glimpse of a woman in a pale dress, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The air was filled with the fragrance of lavender and sea spray, a ghostly presence lingering at the edge of my perception. But when I turned, she was gone, leaving only the echoes of her song intertwined with the whispers of the wind. Descending slowly, each step a solemn tribute to the keeper's eternal vigil, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The photographs now revealed a clearer image of the woman, her expression a blend of hope and resignation, a testament to her unwavering dedication. It dawned on me that she had chosen this path, a keeper of lost souls and guardian of the sea's secrets. Sitting in my car, under the watchful gaze of the lighthouse and the emerging stars above, I reflected on the enduring power of love, duty, and memory. The whisper that had followed me no longer felt eerie. It was a gentle reminder of the timeless bond that transcends even death itself. In the quiet of the night, when the wind carried echoes of her song, I felt her presence, a beacon of light in the darkness, a guardian of lost sailors and forgotten dreams. Haunted not by fear, but by a sense of reverence, I learned that some places exist not to frighten, but to remind us of the enduring strength of love and duty. The lighthouse stood as a testament to the eternal power of memory, its whispered songs echoing through the ages with a poignant grace, a reminder that some bonds are unbreakable, some duties eternal, and some loves everlasting. Story 13. On a gray afternoon, I ventured into a long-forgotten quarry on the outskirts of a quiet town. The expansive, empty expanse resonated with soft, eerie whispers as the wind weaved through sharp rocks and concealed crevices. The cool aroma of aged stone and lingering moisture lingered in the air, creating a sense of a clandestine dialogue between the quarry and the passage of time. The further I wandered into the quarry, my footsteps reverberated softly along weathered stone pathways. Each step stirred up wisps of pale dust that twirled in the soft light filtering through the cloudy sky. Descending deeper, the air turned noticeably cooler, carrying a mysterious sweetness that evoked memories of rain-soaked blossoms. Abandoned places had always intrigued me, but this quarry held a unique allure, a subtle pulsing energy seeming to emanate from its very core. The stone walls, standing tall like ancient sentinels, bore the marks of enduring human labor, yet they now whispered of something far more ancient, far more profound. Turning a corner, a peculiar sight caught my eye. Nestled against a wall, half hidden by a curtain of climbing vines, stood an ancient wooden door. Its weathered surface, a soft gray, appeared remarkably well preserved despite its age. What captivated me was not just its unexpected presence, but the rhythmic movement of the vines around it, a slow, breathing-like motion independent of the wind. Approaching the door cautiously, my fingers grazed the cool stone wall beside it. The sweet fragrance in the air intensified, mingling with an earthy undertone reminiscent of freshly overturned soil. Standing there, I noticed subtle shifts in the quarry's ambience. The natural echo seemed to transform, adopting an almost musical cadence. It was as though the very stone hummed a melody just beneath the threshold of hearing. The door lacked a handle, presenting only a smooth, worn surface where one might have been. Upon closer inspection, intricate patterns adorned the wood, spirals and curves that seemed to shift and evolve when viewed from different angles, creating an endless dance of geometric elegance. Time became fluid within that space. The sky above had darkened imperceptibly, leaving me uncertain if minutes or hours had slipped by. The quarry's whispers grew clearer, though still indecipherable, resembling muffled conversations overheard through walls. Enthralled, I found myself seated on a smooth boulder near the door, entranced by the vine's gentle sway and the steady pulse of enigmatic energy permeating the place. Despite the cooling air, the rock beneath me radiated warmth, as if retaining an ancient memory of the sun's embrace. As twilight approached, faint points of light emerged from deep crevices in the quarry walls. Though not luminous enough to illuminate, they moved purposefully, akin to stars shifting in a stone sky. Their motion mirrored the carvings on the wooden door, a silent exchange between light and shadow. The sweet fragrance grew stronger, accompanied by a sensation of weightlessness, as if the air itself had thickened to support me. The quarry's whispers evolved into a gentle symphony of stone and wind, punctuated by echoes resembling footsteps or heartbeats, or perhaps both. Upon preparing to depart, a subtle change caught my attention. The door, though still in place, had shifted slightly, revealing a thin strip of warm light along its edge. The vines continued their rhythmic breathing, now extending towards me with delicate tendrils that faintly glowed in the encroaching darkness. That day I refrained from touching the door, yet I returned to the quarry countless times thereafter. Sometimes I sat for hours, observing the interplay of light and shadow, listening to the stone's whispered tales. The door remained, static yet ever-changing in subtle ways eluding precise description. The question of what lay beyond lingered in my thoughts during quiet moments. However, I came to accept that certain mysteries are best left unsolved. The quarry safeguarded its secrets, imparting them through whispers and clues, in the gentle dance of vines and the muted gleam of concealed lights. Perhaps the genuine enchantment lay not in uncovering what lay beyond the door, but in silently contemplating its existence. In my dreams, I often revisited that spot, sensing the warmth of the stone beneath me and the brush of cool air against my skin. The quarry's whispers followed me into slumber, a melodic tale of stone and time, reminding me that certain places exist in the threshold between knowledge and imagination, between sight and feeling. The door persisted, nestled amidst breathing vines, neither beckoning nor barring entry, and the quarry continued its ageless discourse with time, speaking through whispers and lights, through shadows and scents, recounting stories to those willing to listen with an open heart and a tranquil mind. Story 14. On a hazy evening, I wandered past an abandoned playground where rusty swings swayed gently in the soft breeze. Amid the cool, misty air, a faint, almost imperceptible laughter floated, a lingering echo of joyful voices that once frolicked in the space. The mingling scents of damp grass and weathered metal hung in the air, evoking a sense of unease, as if the playground still held on to memories of laughter lost to the passage of time. Intrigued, I gravitated towards a worn bench beside the slide, its wooden slats polished smooth by the touch of countless parents who had watched their children at play. The metal framework of the playground equipment cast long shadows in the dim light, creating shifting, dancing patterns that teased the periphery of my vision. A gentle wind whispered through the surrounding trees, carrying with it the sweet, earthy fragrance of autumn leaves. Initially, I convinced myself that I was merely taking a different route home, seeking solitude and reflection after a taxing day. Yet, there was something about the tranquil isolation of the playground that beckoned to me, drawing me back night after night, each visit unraveling new layers of its enigmatic charm. The playground had transformed into my sanctuary, a place where time seemed to ebb and flow in its own mysterious rhythm. On a particularly serene evening, seated on my usual bench, I observed something peculiar about the carousel. Though untouched by human hands, the metal horses gleamed with an uncanny warmth, as if recently caressed by eager little fingers. An odd static energy enveloped them, reminiscent of children's laughter lingering in the silence between sounds. In the following weeks, subtle shifts manifested in the playground's atmosphere. Swings would sway with no apparent breeze. Ephemeral footprints appeared in the morning dew only to vanish as daylight advanced. And the metal slide, chilled by evening mist, occasionally felt warm to the touch, as though someone had just slid down its length. I began to carry a notebook documenting these peculiar occurrences. With each observation, patterns emerged. The elusive laughter I had initially heard seemed to adhere to a schedule, almost becoming audible at certain twilight hours, especially under the glow of a full moon and the encroaching mist from the nearby woods. This spectral sound lingered at the edge of perception, akin to a whisper in a dream, never quite reaching clarity. The other visitors to the park, mostly dog walkers and joggers, passed through swiftly, their gazes skimming over the playground equipment as if it were invisible. But I knew better. I discerned that this place held a secret, revealing itself solely to those who possessed the patience to truly listen and observe. One evening, a small red ball awaited me atop the carousel platform, unmoving. As I approached, it stirred slightly, nudged by an unseen force. Anticipation thickened the air, and for a fleeting moment, the faint strains of children's songs hummed just beyond my hearing. The ball rolled in a perfect circle around the carousel's center pole. That night, I lingered longer than usual, watching as the moon ascended high above the trees. The playground equipment cast shadows that seemed to dance independently, and the swings swayed rhythmically, syncing with the beat of my heart. The imperceptible laughter gained strength, not in volume but in presence, enveloping me like a comforting embrace. In that moment, a profound realization washed over me. This playground wasn't haunted conventionally, it was frozen in time, preserving a moment of pure joy. The unheard laughter was the collective echo of every child who had ever played there, their happiness imprinted on the space like a photograph developed by light. The enigmatic events weren't intended to frighten, but to remind us of the enchantment that lingers in places where innocence and imagination once reigned supreme. Months have passed, and I still frequent my special playground nearly every evening. I've learned to discern the subtle cues that signal the peak of the inaudible laughter, a certain quality to the mist, a specific hue of twilight, the pregnant hush in the air. Sometimes I bring a book and read softly to the empty playground, and on those nights the swings sway with purpose, the carousel horses stand tall, and the laughter, though unheard, feels almost tangible. I've kept this tale to myself, understanding how it might be perceived, but mostly because I cherish this clandestine bond with a place existing between memory and magic. The playground has taught me that some mysteries are meant to be experienced and treasured, not unraveled. And so, I continue my twilight visits, content to be the silent witness to a performance unfolding in whispers and shadows, accompanied by laughter that exists just beyond the realm of human hearing. Story 15. In the cozy embrace of my favorite coffee shop on a rainy morning, I stumbled upon a neatly folded note resting on my table. The paper, clean and adorned with elegant, unfamiliar script, carried a delicate scent of lavender intertwined with the aroma of coffee. As I deciphered its enigmatic message, a chill skittered down my spine. This was no mere coincidence, but a deliberate clue to a hidden mystery within the ordinary. The message, simple yet puzzling, read, "Seek the woman in the pearl gray coat. She arrives every Tuesday precisely at 9:17 a.m. She makes no orders, engages in no conversations, yet she always leaves something behind." Intrigued, I felt compelled to return to the cafe each Tuesday, driven by an inexplicable curiosity. The soft patter of rain against the windows became my companion, a soothing melody to accompany my silent vigil. The familiar blend of freshly ground coffee beans and baked goods enveloped me, creating a snug cocoon as I patiently awaited her arrival. On the first Tuesday, I arrived early, selecting a secluded table that afforded a clear view of both entrances. The cafe hummed with subdued chatter, the clinking of cups, and the rhythmic ticking of an antique clock on the wall. I divided my attention between the clock's steady cadence and the entrance, anticipating her appearance. At precisely 9:17, she glided in, the pearl gray coat draped elegantly over her form, capturing and reflecting the soft light with ethereal grace. Her presence was both solid and elusive, akin to morning mist kissed by sunlight. She moved with deliberate poise, always choosing the same window-side table. While her face remained mostly concealed beneath a wide-brimmed hat, her hands, adorned with a single silver ring, spoke of a graceful age. Week after week, I observed her ritual unfold with meticulous precision. She would sit for precisely 7 minutes, her demeanor composed, her hands folded in her lap. True to the note's description, she never made a purchase or acknowledged anyone. Yet I couldn't ignore the small tokens she discreetly left behind. A vintage button, a pressed flower, an old compass with a cracked dial but a needle that spun with an otherworldly fervor. The cafe staff seemed oblivious to these offerings. When I inquired about the mysterious woman, their gazes would glaze over, deflecting my questions as if she existed beyond their perception. Each item she left behind pulsed with a subtle energy, whispering fragments of a tale I struggled to piece together. One rainy Tuesday, I found her seated at my usual spot. Though her features remained veiled, I sensed her acknowledgement of my presence. Before her lay an ancient leather-bound journal, its pages tinged with age. With a slight nod, she gestured to the seat opposite her. As I settled in, the cafe's ambient sounds dulled to a distant murmur, and a charged stillness settled between us, pregnant with possibility, like the moment preceding a thunderous storm. Her voice, as she spoke, carried the rustling whisper of autumn leaves in a gentle breeze. "You have been watching," she stated, her tone devoid of inquiry. "Few discern the patterns anymore. Fewer still take the time to observe, to ponder, to question the gaps between seconds." Opening the journal, she unveiled pages embellished with the same elegant script from the initial note. "Time is not linear," she elucidated, her fingers tracing the script. "It folds and unfolds like origami, creating folds where secrets nestle. Some of us traverse these folds, gathering what lingers in the crevices." The journal contained sketches of the objects she had been leaving behind, accompanied by coordinates, dates, and enigmatic annotations that seemed to shift and morph when viewed from different angles. "Why me?" I murmured, barely audible. She smiled, though her features remained veiled. "You possess the patience for patterns, the capacity to dwell in uncertainty without demanding solutions. Most importantly, you recognize that certain enigmas are meant to be encountered, not unraveled." With that, she rose, leaving the journal behind. "It is your turn now," she whispered softly. "Watch for those who observe the patterns. Lead them back to wonder with breadcrumbs of intrigue." When I looked up from the journal, she had vanished. The cafe's ambient sounds flooded back like a gentle tide. The rain continued its steady cadence against the panes, and the aroma of coffee lingered in the air. The journal remained, substantial and tangible, beneath my touch, its pages now blank where the writing had once resided. Every Tuesday at 9:17 a.m., I still frequent the cafe. Occasionally I spy others like me, quietly observing. Sometimes I leave behind modest tokens, a vintage key, a pressed leaf, a smooth sea glass piece weathered by time. I witness their discovery, the moment when curiosity sparks in their eyes. The woman in the pearl gray coat never reappeared, but her essence lingers in the tranquil interludes between heartbeats, in the gentle rain against the windows, in the wisps of steam rising from coffee cups. I have come to comprehend that certain mysteries require no unraveling. They demand witnessing, reverence, and transmission, akin to whispered confidences in the fleeting spaces between seconds. Story 16. On a misty evening, I found myself wandering along a weathered pier that extended into a bay veiled in a cloak of fog. The gentle lull of waves and the far-off calls of seabirds set the stage for an enigmatic melody that seemed to materialize out of thin air, a clandestine symphony orchestrated by the whims of wind and water. The air carried hints of the sea's briny essence and the earthy fragrance of aged wood, blending to create an atmosphere where nature's subtle and mysterious concert unfolded. With each step I took on the worn planks, the fog enveloped me like a soft gray shroud. The time-worn boards beneath my feet creaked softly in response, adding their own percussive rhythm to the otherworldly music that permeated the air, emanating from unseen sources. The melody, both haunting and soothing, whispered of a long-forgotten lullaby played on ethereal strings. Lanterns dotted along the pier cast pools of amber light through the mist, their glow swaying and dancing in the evening breeze. Amidst this dim illumination, a peculiar sight caught my eye. The railings seemed to vibrate ever so faintly, as if resonating in harmony with the mysterious music. When my hand brushed against the smooth, salt-weathered wood, a subtle tremor greeted me, akin to the lingering hum of a tuning fork struck in the distance. In this place, time flowed differently, and the outside world felt distant, muffled by the encompassing fog. As I ventured deeper into the mist, the symphony evolved, growing more intricate. What began as a simple melody now wove together layers of harmonies. The whisper of wind through unseen gaps, the rhythmic beat of water against the pier's supports, and an elusive sound resembling distant voices singing in flawless unity. At the pier's end stood an ancient gazebo, its Victorian architecture barely visible through the swirling mist, its dome rising like a specter emerging from the haze. As I drew closer, the mysterious music swelled to a gentle crescendo. The gazebo's ornate railings seemed to serve as the pipes of an organ, each hollow post contributing a unique note to the otherworldly composition. Inside the gazebo, intricate patterns adorned the wooden ceiling, spirals and waves that seemed to come alive in the shifting lantern light. A weathered brass plaque, its inscription faded by time and salt air, hinted at a past event, in memory of the symphony, accompanied by a date from a bygone era. Seated on an aged wooden bench within the gazebo, I found myself entranced by the music, the fog swirling in harmony with the enchanting melody, conjuring ephemeral shapes that danced in the shifting light. I swayed gently, drawn into the peaceful rhythm of this inexplicable performance. As night descended, I noticed an unexpected warmth in the air, a comforting embrace that defied the usual chill of the waterfront. The lantern light pulsed softly, mirroring the tempo of the mysterious song, illuminating the carved patterns above in a mesmerizing display of light and shadow. In this twilight realm between wakefulness and dreams, I realized that the pier itself was a grand instrument, a weathered, colossal musical contrivance played by nature's unseen hands. Each plank, each railing, each post had been positioned not just for utility, but for the symphony they would collectively produce when touched by the elements. The worn plaque's message took on new significance. Perhaps this pier was erected not solely for maritime use, but as a tribute to something or someone lost to time. Each evening, under the right conditions, it offered its musical homage to any willing listener, a memorial in the form of music rather than stone. As I prepared to depart, the melody lingered, fading gradually with each step but never entirely vanishing. The fog parted slightly, revealing a gentle pathway back to the shore. Even on solid ground, the rhythm of that mysterious music resonated within me, akin to a half-remembered dream. Occasionally, on mist-laden evenings, I returned to that pier, drawn by the allure of the ever-changing symphony. The music persists, evolving with the weather, the tides, and perhaps even the audience itself. It remains a mystery best left unsolved. A gentle reminder that life's most exquisite moments are often those beyond full comprehension. The experience left me pondering a lingering question. Was I merely witness to a natural phenomenon, an acoustic anomaly born of wind and architecture? Or had I chanced upon something extraordinary, a fragment of history preserved not in archives or images, but in the enduring notes of an eternal symphony conducted by the sea itself? Story 17. On a quiet midnight journey back home, the subway car felt unusually heavy, almost burdened by a silent weight. In the dim corner, a figure sat alone, their gaze fixed upon me as the train glided through the shadowed tunnels. The air held a dense mix of sweat and stagnant breath, and a creeping sensation of being observed settled upon me. The gentle sway of the carriage and the rhythmic clack of wheels on tracks usually lulled me to rest, but this night was different. My focus kept returning to the stranger, who seemed to warp the very essence of reality around them. The flickering fluorescent lights above cast eerie shadows that danced upon the worn metal walls. I couldn't shake the feeling of unease as I observed the peculiarities of my fellow traveler. Their form appeared slightly blurred, as if seen through a misted window. Each blink or shift of my view caused their outline to momentarily sharpen before softening once more. The subtle distortion would have been easy to dismiss as mere fatigue, if not for what unfolded next. The stranger raised a hand in a gesture that left lingering trails in the air, akin to sparklers painting light in the night sky. Each movement created ripples, distorting the advertisements behind them. The temperature plummeted, sending shivers down my spine. Time itself seemed to warp, expanding and contracting with each breath. The gaps between stations stretched, the darkness beyond the windows deepened into an impenetrable void. The usual sounds of the subway faded into a soft silence, leaving only the steady heartbeat of wheels on rails. Their attire appeared both modern and ancient, a coat that could belong to any era, shoes that shifted styles when not directly observed. Despite the overhead light, their face remained in shadow, as though darkness clung to them. A haunting melody hummed from their lips, not heard but felt in my chest, evoking memories of childhood dreams. Despite my heavy eyelids, I resisted sleep, torn between comfort and apprehension. Subtle changes unfolded around me, advertisements shifting images, metal poles bending unnaturally before snapping back. The windows reflected scenes of gardens, libraries, and distant stars. The stranger rose gracefully, moving as if weightless in water. They approached, their feet barely touching the floor, surrounded by an opalescent aura. Their presence exuded an ancient wisdom and boundless patience. Seating themselves across from me, their face briefly revealed kindness and agelessness, familiar yet impossible to grasp. Their voice, like wind through autumn leaves, spoke without moving lips. "You possess keen sight," they whispered. "Few remain awake in this hour of reality." I yearned to respond, to voice my inquiries, but a profound tranquility enveloped me. The train's gentle sway became a cradle, the darkness outside a comforting embrace. The stranger no longer felt unsettling, but rather a long-lost companion on the brink of remembrance. When I reopened my eyes, the subway car was empty. The harsh buzz of lights and standard advertisements returned. The air regained its warmth, and the subway's chorus resumed. Yet something had shifted. A subtle sheen clung to my clothes in the window's reflection, like dew on a spider's web. In my pocket, a ticket stub appeared, bearing unfamiliar words that I somehow understood perfectly. Since that encounter, late-night subway rides have held a new fascination. Occasionally, blurred edges and lingering after-images catch my eye, and a distant humming resonates in my bones, a reminder of reality's fluidity, especially in the twilight spaces between consciousness and slumber. Story 18. In the midst of a chilly, misty evening, I sought refuge at a forgotten bus stop hidden away on a deserted street. Under the faint glow of a solitary streetlight, a soft, rhythmic whisper began to drift from the shadows that enveloped me. The mingling fragrances of rain-kissed pavement and damp foliage infused the sound with a haunting closeness, hinting at a hidden sorrow of the night. The gentle patter of rain on the metal roof provided a soothing accompaniment to my solitude. Nestled on the worn wooden bench, smoothed by years of patient waiting, I allowed myself to sink into the moment. The weathered schedule board, barely discernible beneath layers of time and neglect, murmured tales of long-forgotten roots. My breath formed delicate clouds in the crisp air as I tuned into the growing clarity of the mysterious whisper. Initially, I attributed it to the wind caressing the rusted shelter frame or the distant hum of passing cars. Yet there was a deliberate quality to its rhythm, akin to a conversation just beyond comprehension. Fragments of words and incomplete phrases floated through the air, teasing the edges of understanding. As the streetlight flickered briefly, casting fleeting shadows that seemed to move with intent, I noticed an anomaly about the bench. Intricate patterns, almost imperceptible, had been etched into the wood, revealing themselves only when caught in the right light. They appeared to be numbers or dates, meticulously carved by unknown hands. Tracing these enigmatic markings with my fingertips, the whisper seemed to shift its source. It no longer emanated from the shadows, but resonated from within the bench itself, vibrating through the wood and into my very being. The sensation wasn't eerie, but oddly comforting, akin to a lullaby in a foreign tongue. Each number I touched altered the pitch and cadence of the sound ever so subtly. The rain continued its melodic symphony, and I found myself swaying gently to the mysterious harmony of water and murmurs. Despite the autumn chill, the air grew thick with a warmth inexplicable, carrying hints of summer blooms and sun-kissed wood. It felt as though the bus stop existed in its own timeless realm, where seasons and memories intertwined in a mysterious dance. I noticed my watch had frozen, its hands suspended at an impossible angle between digits. Rather than unsettling me, this detail felt like a natural part of the enigma enveloping me. The boundaries between wakefulness and dream began to blur, delicate as moth wings brushing against my consciousness. Gradually, the murmur evolved into a structured yet indecipherable rhythm, reminiscent of multiple conversations interweaving in a crowded room. Each voice seemed to belong to the same person, across different moments in time. Surrendering to the whispers, I closed my eyes, allowing them to envelop me like gentle waves. In that state of tranquil awareness, visions materialized in my mind, fleeting glimpses of past passengers, each leaving an invisible imprint on this humble shelter. Their stories seeped from the walls, carried by the mysterious murmur that had beckoned me into its embrace. An elderly woman with kind eyes clutching a letter close to her heart, a young man in an antiquated uniform anxiously checking his watch, a child in a yellow raincoat tracing patterns in the condensation, each vision as vivid as my own presence, yet as ethereal as morning mist. The streetlight's glow took on a liquid quality, pooling around my feet in mesmerizing ways. The carved numbers on the bench began to emit a faint glow, casting intricate patterns that danced across my skin. Time flowed differently in this peculiar space, like honey trickling from a spoon, unhurried and sweet. Upon opening my eyes, I realized the rain had ceased, though I couldn't recall when. The whisper had softened to a barely discernible hum, lingering like the remnants of a dream. The air retained its peculiar warmth, the carved numbers still faintly aglow, yet a shift had transpired in the atmosphere. Rising from the bench, I felt altered, as if initiated into a shared secret of all who had waited here before me. Though the murmur divulged no concrete message, I felt enriched by its presence, touched by something ancient and forever new. As I readied to depart, my reflection in the rain-streaked shelter glass seemed to blend momentarily with ghostly images of past travelers, our features merging in the dim light. Extending my hand to touch the cool surface, the murmur rose once more, a fleeting farewell embrace. Walking away from the bus stop, a sense of profound yet indefinable experience lingered within me. The whisper may have faded, but its echo persisted, a gentle reminder that certain mysteries are meant to be embraced, cherished in their exquisite uncertainty. Story 19. On a bright afternoon, as I tended to the needs of my garden, a serendipitous moment unfolded before me. A loose floorboard in the corner of the shed caught my eye, beckoning me to explore further. With a gentle touch, I lifted it, revealing a hidden chamber, brimming with relics and enigmatic trinkets. The air within was heavy with the aroma of moist earth and ancient wood, setting a mysterious ambience that stirred my curiosity. Each object in the room whispered tales of a distant past, inviting me to unravel the secrets they held close. Sunlight, filtered through the dusty window of the shed, cast ethereal shadows upon the worn tools and terracotta pots scattered around. In the midst of organizing my gardening essentials, my foot stumbled upon the peculiar board, emitting a hollow resonance that seemed pregnant with possibilities. Kneeling down, I peered into the opening it revealed, unveiling a narrow staircase disappearing into darkness. As I descended, the musty scent intensified and the temperature dropped, accompanied by the faint echo of dripping water in the distance. My flashlight illuminated shelves adorned with peculiar artifacts from ages long past. Delicate porcelain dolls with knowing gazes, journals filled with faded ink narrating tales of yesteryears, and brass instruments that seemed to hold melodies of forgotten tunes within their silent forms. Yet, it was a peculiar music box that captured my attention, its intricate design depicting a garden mirroring my own, exuding a fragrant breath of spring blossoms when opened, a scent from a time beyond reckoning. Further exploration revealed details that challenged my perception of reality. The room's boundaries extended far beneath the garden, marked by enigmatic symbols resembling star charts adorned with unfamiliar constellations. Lost in time, I lost track of hours as I examined each object, immersing myself in the silent narrative of this hidden sanctuary. The air itself seemed alive, whispering secrets and occasionally hinting at a distant melodic hum that echoed through the walls like a lullaby from a forgotten era. Among the old photographs depicting various individuals in the garden through different epochs, a sense of connection resonated within me. Their expressions mirrored my own sense of wonder and contemplation, hinting at a shared experience of discovery in this clandestine space beneath the earth. The journals, with their drawings of unknown plants and descriptions of natural phenomena beyond comprehension, further blurred the line between reality and mystery. As daylight shifted, casting ever-changing patterns through the cracks above, the room transformed, each beam illuminating a different facet of its hidden treasures. In a corner, a peculiar key of intricate design rested in a drawer, its purpose unknown yet evoking a sense of unresolved enigma. Time itself seemed to warp within this subterranean realm, playing tricks on my perception as minutes stretched into hours and back again. Emerging from the hidden chamber, the garden greeted me with the same golden light, as if time had stood still in that enchanted place below. The floorboards settled back into place with a knowing sigh, guarding the secrets shared between myself and the clandestine room. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I reflected on the profound impact of my discovery, feeling a newfound connection to the world around me. The garden whispered its secrets in the rustling leaves, and the mysteries of the hidden room lingered in the air, infusing my days with a sense of wonder and possibility. Unspoken and unseen, the room beneath the shed remained my sanctuary, a timeless space where questions need not be answered and mysteries need not be solved. It transformed my perception of the ordinary, revealing layers of enchantment waiting to be unveiled by those willing to listen to the whispers of the earth. To this day, I tend to my garden with a renewed sense of purpose, guided by the subtle echoes of that hidden chamber below. Occasionally, glimpses of strange reflections dance across the shed's window, as if the room itself reaches out through the play of light and shadow. The garden continues to flourish, occasionally adorned with artifacts from the depths below, reminders of a realm untouched by time or logic. The secret room remains my silent companion, a place where time flows softly like honey and mysteries abound, patiently awaiting those curious enough to explore its depths. Story 20. In the hush of a sudden downpour one tranquil night, I ventured outside to fetch my umbrella and came upon a trail of muddy footprints meandering away from my doorstep. The raindrops fell with a steady beat upon the pavement, and the damp air carried a whisper of mystery, a silent guest whose presence lingered, both intriguing and disquieting. Beneath the glow of the porch light, I observed as each raindrop slowly blurred the outlines of the footprints, morphing them into vague, soft shapes against the slick concrete. The rain cascaded in gentle waves, crafting a lulling white noise that seemed to wash away the familiar sounds of the evening. My breath formed wispy clouds in the cool air as I pondered the enigmatic marks before me. These footprints were peculiar, not quite matching any shoes in my possession, yet oddly familiar. They seemed to be imprints of someone walking with deliberate intent, each step purposeful and measured. What captivated me most was their subtle shimmer in the dim light, as if holding minuscule specks of reflected moonbeams. Inexplicably drawn, I followed the trail, my own footsteps whispering against the damp earth as I advanced, accompanied by the gentle patter of rain on my coat. The air carried the earthy scent of rain-soaked soil and something more, a faint, sweet fragrance reminiscent of aged books and dried flowers. The path guided me through my garden, where droplets adorned leaves and petals like delicate strands of pearls. The night-blooming jasmine had unfurled its blossoms, releasing its ethereal essence into the misty air. The footprints navigated between the flora with uncanny precision, never disturbing a single stem or leaf. It was as if the maker of these imprints had known precisely where to tread. Continuing along the trail, a peculiar observation caught my eye. The raindrops falling around the footprints seemed to pause momentarily before touching the ground, creating fleeting, suspended spheres of water. The effect was subtle, nearly imperceptible, but I noticed it keenly due to my rapt attention. The garden path led to a small clearing where I often savored the sunset. Here the footprints formed a perfect circle, as if the creator had stood turning slowly on the spot. Within this circular space, the grass appeared subtly different, perhaps more silvery or somehow imbued with vitality. Each blade swayed in an unseen breeze. Kneeling, I inspected the grass, running my fingers over the otherworldly stems. They exuded a coolness and seemed to hum with a gentle vibration that tingled up my fingertips. The rain persisted in its rhythmic descent, but within the circle, each droplet sang a soft, nearly inaudible note as it fell. Rising slowly, I noticed the footprints continued beyond the circle, now fainter, barely discernible against the darkened earth, as if their creator had gradually faded. The peculiar, sweet scent I had detected earlier grew more potent here, mingling with the rain-charged air in a manner that instilled a sense of tranquility. Tracing the fainter trail led me to the ancient oak tree at the edge of my land. Its sprawling branches arched overhead like protective sentinels, their leaves murmuring secrets to the rain. The footprints ceased at the tree's base, or perhaps they ascended its trunk. Amidst the dim light and rain, it remained unclear where the marks ended and the bark's natural patterns began. Pressing my palm against the oak's damp bark, I sensed the same subtle vibration I had felt in the grassy circle. The tree pulsated with a gentle energy, akin to a slumbering heart beating in a leisurely cadence. Rivulets of water trickled down its trunk, forming and reforming patterns that almost resembled inscribed words, though they dissolved before I could decipher them. Standing there amid the rain, I perceived a profound shift in the atmosphere. The air crackled with a delicate electricity, akin to the moment preceding a rainbow's emergence. The raindrops now fell in choreographed patterns, crafting a dance of light and shadow that harmonized with an unheard melody. Though I did not lay eyes on my silent visitor that night, their presence had transfigured my familiar garden into a realm of enchantment and novelty. Even upon returning indoors, shaking raindrops from my coat, I sensed the lingering echoes of their passage in the surrounding air. The peculiar, sweet fragrance clung to my garments for days, and occasionally during rainfall, I caught fleeting traces of it once more. Now, on tranquil rainy nights, an irresistible urge draws me outside, yearning to uncover fresh footprints meandering through my garden. Though they have yet to reappear, a subtle transformation has taken hold. The rain falls differently, my garden flourishes anew, and the old oak tree sways with a newfound grace. My silent visitor bequeathed more than mere footprints. They left behind a gentle enigma that unfurls with each raindrop's descent. As I pen these words by lamplight, witnessing another storm approach, I ponder if perhaps the visitor did not merely pass through, but instead imparted a fragment of themselves into this place's essence. Occasionally, as I drift into slumber and the rain whispers softly outside my window, I swear I discern distant footsteps moving in perfect synchrony with the raindrops, as if an ethereal presence still wanders through my garden, leaving no traces save for their intangible essence. Story 21. In the quiet embrace of night, a mysterious pull beckoned me into the forgotten embrace of an old theater on the edge of town. Once a grand dame of the stage, now draped in the shroud of decay, its ornate balconies and velvet seats whispered of a bygone era filled with applause and drama. As my footsteps echoed on the weathered boards of the stage, a soft, haunting voice reached out to me, weaving lines of sorrow and yearning that seemed to linger in the shadows. The very essence of the theater seemed to stir, as if holding on to memories long past, its musty scent mingling with the echoes of forgotten dreams. A gentle autumn breeze whispered through unseen cracks, orchestrating a symphony of rustling papers and distant whispers that filled the air with a sense of ethereal presence. Each step I took on the stage felt like a journey through layers of time, the weight of history palpable in the air around me. Above, the grand chandelier hung in silent reverence, its crystals catching stray beams of light that filtered through the high windows, casting delicate patterns on the walls like fleeting memories. Drawn to the wing of the stage by a whisper in the wind, I found myself amidst old props draped in ghostly sheets, their forms resembling gentle waves in the dim light. The voice, now a mere whisper, seemed to emanate from this direction, leading me to a forgotten dressing room mirror. Clouded with age, yet shimmering with an otherworldly glow, The mirror seemed to hold secrets within its depths, inviting me to peer closer. As I approached, a chill descended, not unwelcome, but tinged with a sense of something otherworldly. The mirror pulsed with a strange energy, reflecting movements that were not my own, shadows of performers from a distant past, perhaps rehearsing their final act. The voice, now clearer, belonged to a woman, her melodic recitations painting a picture of a timeless tragedy that tugged at the heartstrings. Time seemed to lose its grip in this space, minutes stretching into hours as I unearthed relics of the theater's glory days. Old playbills crumbled at my touch, costume pieces whispered of performances long forgotten, and the voice guided me through the hidden recesses of the theater, a spectral companion in the fading light. As evening descended, the shifting light painted the theater in new hues, casting elongated shadows that danced with purpose across the empty seats. The voice, now a steady murmur, enveloped me in a cocoon of tranquility as I settled into a well-worn velvet chair, watching as dust motes pirouetted in the waning sunlight. The theater itself seemed to breathe, its walls expanding and contracting with the weight of untold stories. In the quiet of night, I came to understand that the voice was not just a sound, but a vessel of memory, the very essence of the theater itself speaking through the ages. Each word carried echoes of performances past, of joy and sorrow intertwined in a delicate tapestry that wove together the threads of time. As darkness deepened, the voice took on a new dimension, resonating with a warmth that seemed to vibrate through the very air. I drifted on the cusp of sleep, the voice a soothing lullaby that blurred the line between reality and dream. In the moonlit theater, phantom audience members took form in the shifting shadows, their presence a silent tribute to the stories that echoed through the hallowed halls. With each breath, a sense of peace settled over me, the voice ebbing like a retreating tide, leaving behind a whispered gratitude for bearing witness to the tales within. As I made my way towards the exit, the theater seemed to settle into a slumber, its aged timbers sighing in contentment. The voice, now a faint memory, lingered like a gentle echo in my mind, a reminder of the stories that lay dormant within the theater's walls. Months later, I still find myself drawn back to that sacred space, where the voice remains a constant companion in the twilight hours, a reminder that some places never truly empty, but rather wait for a willing listener to breathe life into their silent echoes. The theater stands as a sanctuary of memories, where past and present dance in harmony, and where the whispers of the past are forever preserved in the gentle echoes of that mysterious voice that sings through the night, a timeless melody of forgotten tales. Story 22. Amidst the crumbling grandeur of an abandoned theater, I found myself drawn to a seat in the dimly lit auditorium. The air hung heavy with silence, broken only by a soft, almost imperceptible laughter that seemed to dance through the empty aisles. It was a laughter tinged with nostalgia, a gentle reminder of nights long past when this theater echoed with applause and reverberated with joy. The musty scent of velvet curtains and decaying props enveloped me, transporting me to a time when this place thrived with life and artistry. I had come to this forsaken theater in search of inspiration for my writing, lured by whispers of its enigmatic ambience. The heavy wooden doors had groaned open at my touch, welcoming me into a realm suspended between the echoes of history and the solitude of the present. Dust motes pirouetted in ethereal beams of light that filtered through high windows, painting delicate patterns that swirled and shifted like ghostly dancers on an unseen stage. Despite the faded grandeur of the red velvet seats, they exuded a timeless elegance that whispered of bygone tales. Tracing my fingers along their worn fabric, I could sense the weight of countless narratives woven into the very fibers, tales of entertainment, romance, and wonder that had once unfolded in this hallowed space. The air itself carried a sweet undertone beneath its musty veneer, redolent of old perfumes and powders, evoking the ghostly essence of performers long departed. In the hushed stillness, subtle movements flickered at the edge of my vision. The heavy stage curtains stirred as if stirred by an unseen hand, the fabric rustling softly in the absence of any discernible breeze. Soft footsteps traversed the stage, their cadence a silent echo of a forgotten dance, while the gentle creak of floorboards hinted at invisible performers taking their positions. The air hummed with the sound of pages turning, a phantom prompter leafing through an ethereal script. These sounds, far from unsettling, enveloped me in a cocoon of comfort, like being cradled in a tapestry of memories. Time seemed to ebb and flow in this spectral sanctuary, minutes stretching into languid hours as I sat in rapt stillness, attuned to the theater's whispered symphony. The shifting afternoon light cast elongated shadows across the vacant seats, shadows that seemed to coalesce into ethereal forms, the silhouettes of an unseen audience, their phantom attire hinting at a bygone era of elegance and refinement. The laughter that had first beckoned to me returned, accompanied now by the muffled applause of invisible spectators. It was a distant yet intimate sound, a faint echo of joy played at the lowest volume. Closing my eyes, I surrendered to the spectral serenade, allowing the echoes of the past to wash over me. Upon opening my eyes, I caught a fleeting glimpse of a dress fluttering behind a column, the fabric catching the light for the briefest moment before vanishing into the shadows. As evening descended upon the theater, a subtle shift occurred, infusing the space with a palpable sense of vitality. The ambient temperature fluctuated unexpectedly, warm patches yielding to cool breezes that whispered of unseen passers-by. Though decades had dimmed the glow of the stage lights, a faint luminescence lingered, casting a soft, ethereal aura over the dormant stage. Drawn inexorably toward the platform, I ascended the wooden steps, each creak reverberating through the empty expanse. Standing at the center of the stage, I gazed out at the sea of vacant seats, yet they seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy, as if awaiting the opening act of an invisible performance. From this vantage point, details previously overlooked came into focus. Scattered remnants of a bygone era littered the wings, a tarnished mirror, a lone glove, a weathered script, all arranged as if their owners had just stepped away momentarily. The aged mirror occasionally reflected fleeting apparitions, a ghostly dance of movement and color that defied rational explanation. When my voice finally pierced the silence, it emerged as a mere whisper, dissipating into the darkness beyond the stage. The response, when it came, manifested not in words, but in a symphony of subtle sounds. The rustle of fabric, distant murmurs, the soft patter of footsteps, blending into a harmonious chorus that swelled like a crescendo. In that moment, I grasped the truth that this theater was not vacant, but teeming with echoes. Echoes of moments, emotions, and experiences that had left an indelible imprint on its time-worn walls. The laughter that had initially drawn me in was not a harbinger of fear, but a celebration of joy, a testament to the enduring legacy of happiness that had permeated these hallowed halls. It was as though the very essence of the theater had absorbed the collective memories of elation and occasionally released them back into our realm, like a haunting melody from a music box that plays of its own accord. With dusk descending, I knew it was time to depart. Navigating the shadow-laden aisles, I felt a gentle tug at my being, as if the theater sought to prolong our ephemeral connection. The exit loomed in the distance, the path meandering through pools of darkness that seemed to shift and coil with a will of their own. Pausing at the threshold, I cast a final glance back, and for a fleeting instant, the theater shimmered with a spectral radiance, alive with the echoes of its prime. The seats brimming with shadowy spectators, the stage bathed in a warm, inviting glow, the curtains billowing with anticipation. Yet the ephemeral vision dissipated as swiftly as it had materialized. leaving behind the familiar emptiness of the abandoned space. Stepping out into the night, I realized that the term empty was a misnomer. The theater was not devoid, but replete with narratives, with memories, with moments suspended in time. And if one listened closely enough, one could discern them playing out anew, an eternal performance for an audience of one. The laughter lingered in my ears, a gentle reminder that certain places are never truly forsaken, but rather bide their time, amassing recollections until a receptive soul arrives to tune into the echoes of delight that linger in the shadows. Story 23. On a tranquil evening disrupted by a sudden downpour, I sought refuge beneath an awning to evade the rain's relentless assault. Amidst the rhythmic drumming of droplets on the pavement, a faint, urgent whisper floated through the storm, carrying a promise of hidden truths waiting to be unveiled. The air was cool and saturated with the refreshing fragrance of rain, accompanied by the distant rumble of thunder, setting a mysterious tone for what was to come. Enthralled by the mesmerizing symphony of raindrops against the sheltering canvas above me, I was startled when the whisper returned, more distinct this time, as if a voice was speaking just behind me. Turning around, I was met with emptiness and the encroaching darkness of twilight. The street lamps flickered to life, casting gentle halos in the mist-laden air, while the beckoning voice seemed to guide me towards a narrow alley nestled between weathered brick structures. Under usual circumstances, I would have dismissed such a peculiar urge, but there was an inexplicable allure to this evening. The whisper, devoid of malice, held a gentle insistence reminiscent of my grandmother's storytelling. With cautious steps, I ventured into the alley, feeling the rain transition into a soft mist. The warmth emanating from the ancient brick walls, despite the evening's chill, hinted at a history soaked in summer sun, now slowly seeping back into the world. My footfalls created soft splashes in the puddles, forming mesmerizing patterns of light reflecting from above. The alley unveiled a hidden courtyard shielded from the outside world by towering edifices. At its heart stood an ancient fountain, its weathered stone exuding a timeless elegance. Water cascaded from its spout, harmonizing with the rain to orchestrate a soothing melody that enveloped the space. The whispers, now seemingly originating from the fountain itself, grew more potent as I drew closer. Surrounding the fountain's base, clusters of delicate blue flowers emitted an otherworldly glow, pulsating in harmony with the falling water. These blooms, both ancient and freshly blossomed, appeared to transcend time, existing in multiple moments concurrently. Kneeling beside the fountain, a sense of familiarity washed over me, drawn inexplicably to the faint engravings on the stone, resembling cryptic symbols in a language unfamiliar to me. As my fingers traced the markings, they seemed to shift and morph beneath my touch, akin to words dissolving in water. The whispers evolved into coherent phrases, hinting at memories, promises, and the cyclical nature of time mirrored in the fountain's flow. I glimpsed ethereal reflections in the fountain's pool, depicting scenes from bygone eras and lives intertwined with this mystical place. Each vision ebbed and faded like fleeting dreams, leaving a lingering impression of a shared existence beyond the confines of reality. The gentle pulsing of the blue flowers cast dancing shadows against the courtyard walls, while time itself seemed to meander like honey, serene and unhurried. Immersed in this timeless oasis, I felt no compulsion to depart, untroubled by the encroaching darkness. The whispers enveloped me like a comforting lullaby, evoking distant memories half remembered from childhood. As the rain continued its gentle descent, forming a veil that separated this sanctuary from the mundane world outside, the secrets shared in whispers became ingrained in my subconscious, destined to be cherished in my deepest slumbers. Upon rising to leave, I noticed a lone blue flower had detached and found its way into my palm. Though its glow had dimmed to match the natural world, its beauty remained undiminished. The whispers faded as I retraced my steps through the alley, yet their warmth lingered like a fond embrace. Emerging onto the street, the rain had ceased, leaving the air heavy with moisture under the familiar glow of street lamps, signaling a return to normalcy. But within me, I carried the indelible mark of that enigmatic courtyard, forever altered by its gentle mystery. On rainy evenings since, I catch fleeting echoes of those whispers carried on the wind. The blue flower rests on my windowsill, outwardly unassuming to all but me. Yet in the stillness of night, as the world slumbers, it emits a soft, pulsating light, a reminder of promises whispered in the rain and the hidden enigmas awaiting those attuned to the secrets murmured in the storm's embrace. Story 24. On a rare, chilly night, I roamed through an empty train yard at the outskirts of town. Surrounded by rusted tracks and silent, decaying engines, a single light flickered intermittently atop an old signal tower. The scent of rust mingled with the musty dampness of concrete, and that stuttering glow pulsed like a heartbeat in the darkness, whispering of untold tales from journeys long forgotten. With each step on the gravel, a soft crunch echoed beneath my feet, accompanied by the gentle whisper of wind weaving through hollow train cars. The air held a peculiar stillness, the kind that settles in places abandoned by time itself. Moths danced around the few working lampposts, their delicate wings casting shadows that danced across weathered metal surfaces. Drawn irresistibly towards the singular blinking light in the tower, its rhythm neither regular nor random but somehow purposeful, I felt a sense of familiarity tugging at the edges of my memory. As I drew closer, the dark windows of the tower heightened the significance of that sole illumination. The slightly ajar door creaked mournfully as a gust of wind nudged it. Stepping inside, the air shifted, thick with an electric anticipation that sent a shiver down my spine. Each creak of the wooden stairs released the faint scent of aged timber and decades-old dust. Reaching the top floor, I entered an ancient control room filled with obsolete equipment. Switches, levers, and dial gauges adorned the walls, their brass and copper fittings dulled by years of neglect. Yet, what captured my attention was the enigmatic source of light. An old signal lamp that should have been powerless, yet its hypnotic pulse persisted. Watching closely, I noticed something extraordinary unfolding before me. The light's pattern began to synchronize with the gentle rhythm of my breath, as if acknowledging my presence. An unseen connection enveloped me as the room's atmosphere shifted subtly, evoking echoes of long-forgotten conversations, the ghostly echoes of train whistles, and the phantom stirrings of travelers from eras past. Seated in an operator's chair, I found myself entranced by the interplay of light and shadow across the control panel. The rhythmic blinking seemed to narrate a tale of solitary nights, of signals dispatched into the unknown, of ties forged and faded. Tracing the worn edges of the control panel, I sensed the lingering warmth of hands that had toiled here decades earlier. Time slipped away as I immersed myself in the gentle pulse of light and the nocturnal symphony of whispers surrounding me. The owl's distant hoot blended with the wind's soft murmur through fractured windows, weaving a melody of solitude. I observed the light's pattern shifting, evolving into a complex sequence akin to a code. In that moment, a realization washed over me, sending a gentle shiver down my spine. I wasn't merely an observer. The light was observing me. Not menacingly, but with the patient curiosity of something ancient and aware. Its glow extended, casting warm tendrils of light that etched stories onto the walls in Morse code shadows. As the night deepened, I uncovered logbooks filled with faded script, detailing the passage of trains through the yard, each entry more bewitching than the last. The final notation from decades past cryptically stated, "The light knows the way home." Beneath it, a series of dots and dashes had been meticulously inscribed, a message inscrutable to my eyes, yet resonating deeply within my being. Upon departing the tower hours later, The light's steady pulse lingered behind me. I understood that I would return, beckoned by the enigma of that singular beacon in the darkness. Sometimes on tranquil nights, I catch myself synchronizing my breath with the remembered rhythm of that light, pondering if somewhere in that forsaken yard it still blinks its age-old message into the night. The tale of the flickering light remains unfinished in my mind, akin to a half-remembered reverie. Perhaps that's how it should be. Certain mysteries are meant to be felt rather than unraveled, their allure residing not in resolution but in the questions they leave lingering in our thoughts, gentle as moth wings against a window pane. Story 25. In the depths of my attic, amidst forgotten relics and dusty memories, a treasure lay hidden. A weathered antique radio, its dial worn smooth by time, its speakers silent until one hushed night when it stirred to life. Crackling static gave way to faint, fragmented voices and distant melodies that floated through the air, carrying with them the bittersweet essence of aged metal and dreams long lost to the passage of years. Each note that emanated from the radio felt like a whispered echo from a past clamoring to be remembered, a melody of nostalgia weaving through the stillness of the night. Intrigued by this unexpected revival, I found myself drawn to the attic with increasing frequency. The space exuded a certain enchantment, with dust motes pirouetting in the moonlight that filtered through a solitary window. The floorboards whispered beneath my steps as I made my way to the corner where the radio rested on a weathered oak table, its mahogany surface dulled by the weight of decades. As twilight painted the sky in gentle hues, I settled into an old leather armchair beside the radio, the ritual of its awakening becoming a soothing cadence in the symphony of my evenings. Turning the brass dial, I watched as the vacuum tubes cast a soft amber glow, patiently awaiting the magic that lingered just beyond the veil of silence. Some nights, only the soft hiss of static filled the air, reminiscent of falling raindrops tapping against the window pane. But on nights heavy with possibility, a transformation unfolded. The music would unfurl gradually, like a delicate flower blooming in the silence, melodies cascading with a grace that transcended the ordinary. Waltzes danced on ethereal currents, jazz pieces whispered of bygone smoky rooms, and voices sang in languages unknown yet familiar to the soul. One autumn eve, as the wind whispered secrets through the trees, a shift occurred in the radio's transmissions. Amidst the musical tapestries, words emerged, soft and clear. Remember the garden, remember the dance, remember the promise. The voice bore no gender or age, but its warmth brushed against my skin, stirring a sense of recognition deep within. Captivated by these enigmatic messages, I began to document each occurrence in a journal, mapping out the celestial dance of the moon, the weather's moods, and any hidden patterns that emerged. The pages filled with descriptions of songs that mirrored my thoughts, of voices that echoed memories foreign yet intimately known. It was as though the radio held a key to the vault of my past, unlocking doors to chambers of my mind long sealed. As winter descended with its longer nights and icy tendrils, the attic grew colder, yet I remained cocooned in the embrace of the radio's melodies. Drifting between wakefulness and dreams, I witnessed spectral figures materialize in the dim light, their presence ephemeral yet hauntingly real. A pinnacle moment arrived on a night veiled in snowfall, where the radio's transmissions spoke directly to the recesses of my being, unearthing forgotten fragments of my childhood, the hue of my first bicycle, the name of a cherished pet, the melody my grandmother sang while baking. Instead of fear, a profound tranquility settled within me, a reassurance that I was being guided back to my essence. In the ensuing months, subtle shifts permeated my reality. Colors bloomed with newfound vibrancy, memories etched themselves with sharper clarity, and dreams unfurled with deeper significance. The radio's influence seeped beyond its broadcasts, stirring dormant embers within me, coaxing melodies from my lips that felt like echoes from an ancient choir. During the hushed interludes when the radio fell silent, contemplation enveloped me. How many layers of existence coexisted beyond our visible realm? How many harmonies of life played in symphony just beyond our grasp? The radio ceased to be a mere device. It became a portal, a looking glass into dimensions that danced alongside our own. Without dissecting its inner workings, I sensed that the radio's enchantment dwelled not in its mechanical parts, but in the liminal spaces between reality and reverie. Perhaps its magic lay in its ability to attune me to frequencies resonating within my own soul, harmonizing with the unseen melodies that pulsed beneath my skin. As I pen these words under the watchful gaze of the radio, its nocturnal serenades continue unabated. The enigmas it unveils remain shrouded in mystery, yet I've come to cherish the questions more than the answers they elude. In the soft crackle of its speakers, in the whispers that straddle the threshold of memory and message, I've discovered a truth that transcends the confines of logic. It speaks to the heart, not the mind. The amber glow of the vacuum tubes now guides me through the nocturnal expanse, casting a warm halo of light that lulls me into slumber. In those fleeting moments before dreams claim me, I wonder if across the expanse of existence, another soul listens to their own mysterious radio, their story interwoven with mine in a tapestry of sound and memory, a dance eternal beneath the veil of night. Story 26. In the dead of night, cruising down a deserted highway, my gaze was drawn to an ancient radio tower outlined against the silvery moonlit sky. A peculiar sensation washed over me as my car passed by, the radio emitting bursts of static, interspersed with a faint, rhythmic pulse that seemed to carry a cryptic significance. The night air was crisp, carrying hints of metal and distant storms, as if the tower itself whispered secrets from a bygone era. Intrigued, I felt compelled to pull over to the roadside, lured by an inscrutable curiosity. The hum of my car's engine faded into the background as I switched off the ignition, leaving only the gentle rustle of wind through the tall grass and the persistent, rhythmic static emanating from the radio. The signal, previously muddled, now seemed clearer, a sequence of prolonged and short bursts reminiscent of Morse code, yet subtly different. The tower stood tall and solitary against the deep indigo canopy above, its warning lights extinguished long ago. Time had weathered its metal frame, etching intricate patterns that appeared almost intentional in their design. As I observed, drifting clouds veiled the moon, casting ephemeral shadows that made the structure seem to sway ever so slightly. The cadence of the signal began to stir a sense of familiarity within me, akin to a melody half recalled from childhood. I closed my eyes, allowing the sound to envelop me, attempting to unearth where I might have encountered it before. The static ebbed and flowed like gentle tides, carrying faint echoes of possible words, just beyond comprehension. I reached for my phone to capture the enigmatic broadcast, only to find it unresponsive, the screen remaining dark despite being fully charged. The atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation, as though the very air held its breath. A soft mist started to gather, enveloping the tower's base like a tender shroud. Enthralled by the signal's rhythm, memories began to surface, memories that felt foreign, not entirely my own. I envisioned individuals laboring in a control room, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of analog instruments, conversing urgently about a significant matter, something worth preserving. The scene unfolded vividly, the aroma of coffee lingering in the air, the whir of magnetic tape reels echoing in my ears. The mist thickened, veiling the tower in a ghostly haze, while the signal's pattern subtly shifted, allowing me to grasp fragments of its message. Numbers, dates, scientific data, and coordinates floated through my mind. Whatever revelation these individuals had unearthed, they had encoded it within this endless transmission, hoping for comprehension to dawn upon someone eventually. Seated there, Time seemed to lose its grip on me as I immersed myself in the cocoon of sound and mist. The temperature dipped slightly, prompting me to draw my jacket closer, yet I couldn't bring myself to depart. Each pulse of static felt like a fragment of an expansive puzzle, awaiting a solver after decades of dormancy. A soft glow emerged from the tower's base, visible through the mist, pulsating in harmony with the radio signal, casting a soothing amber light that danced through the fog. The spectacle was mesmerizing, forming patterns synchronized with the rhythm of my breath. My eyelids grew heavy as I watched the light's tranquil dance. The signal's pattern evolved into something melodic, akin to a lullaby, and I realized that the memories I had encountered weren't random, but deliberately transmitted, preserved within this eternal loop of static and silence. With the approach of dawn, the mist began to dissipate, and the signal gradually faded, leaving the tower standing in silence once more, its enigmas shrouded in layers of rust and history. Suddenly, my phone sprang back to life, displaying numerous missed calls from concerned loved ones. The sun painted the sky in gentle hues, rendering the night's events dreamlike. I restarted my car, merging back onto the vacant highway, yet a change had taken root within me. The signal's rhythm lingered, a subtle hum beneath the surface of my thoughts, beckoning me back to unravel more of its enigma. Certain frequencies, once attuned to, never truly depart. They become part of our inner broadcast, a clandestine wavelength linking us to something greater than ourselves. Even now, on tranquil nights when the breeze whispers just right, I occasionally catch faint echoes of that signal in the static between radio stations. It serves as a reminder that mysteries still abound in this world, camouflaged in plain view, awaiting a receptive ear. The tower endures as a tribute to those who came before, their message encrypted in unceasing waves of static, patiently awaiting the right interpreter to unveil its significance. Story 27. In a forgotten alcove of an overlooked library, I stumbled upon a fragile manuscript with aged, yellowed pages adorned with enigmatic footnotes. Each minuscule annotation, scripted in an unfamiliar hand, hinted at a concealed tale veiled beneath the surface. The musty scent of ancient parchment and ink intermingled with an aura of anticipation, urging me to unravel the veiled lore hidden within the text. The weathered leather binding whispered softly as I turned each frail page with delicate care, feeling the brush of my fingertips against centuries' worth of accumulated dust. While the main text appeared mundane, a scholarly discourse on medieval legends, the footnotes whispered a different narrative. Initially, the annotations seemed innocuous, filled with typical scholarly citations and concise explanations. Yet, as I delved further into the manuscript, a transformation occurred. The script in the margins grew urgent, the ink bleeding deeper into the aged paper. References to obscure texts gave way to personal musings, eventually morphing into what seemed like entries from a personal journal. The unknown annotator chronicled eerie sounds echoing in vacant corridors, shadows dancing against the light, and whispers reverberating in solitude. Lost in the solitary corner of the library, surrounded by towering shelves that seemed to lean toward me as if listening intently, I became engrossed in the pages before me. The gentle golden light from a nearby desk lamp bathed the manuscript in a warm glow, yet shrouded the spaces between the shelves in profound shadow. As twilight approached, the shadows stretched and crept across the floor like inky tendrils of darkness. One footnote, in particular, seized my attention. It alluded to a series of numbers that resembled dates, yet followed a calendar unfamiliar to me. Below them, in slightly quivering script, were inscribed the words, "The patterns reveal themselves only in darkness. They whisper of what lies between fleeting moments, in the voids where time folds upon itself." Delving into these cryptic notes, I began to discern peculiar patterns unfolding in my own existence. Books I sought would materialize on my desk without my intervention. The library seemed to rearrange itself in my absence, crafting new pathways through the stacks that invariably led me back to the mysterious manuscript. Even when the book lay closed, the sound of pages turning would murmur through the air. The footnotes evolved, growing more intimate, as if the annotator sensed they were communicating with a future reader, with me. They narrated a burgeoning awareness, a gradual comprehension that the manuscript transcended mere paper and ink. The annotations served as a conduit, bridging not only pages but epochs, possibly centuries. Time slipped into obscurity as I immersed myself in the enigmatic marginalia. The soft tick-tock of the library clock seemed to decelerate, eventually halting altogether. The quality of light remained consistent despite the hours I spent engrossed in reading, as if the sun itself paused in its celestial sojourn. Enveloped in a tranquil twilight that never quite yielded to absolute darkness, the footnotes guided me through a maze of references, each link weaving an intricate tapestry of significance. They recounted ancient civilizations that had mastered the art of folding time like parchment, scholars who deciphered the spaces between words, and libraries that transcended temporal boundaries. Approaching the final pages, the annotations transitioned into a reflective, almost serene tone. The frenzied energy of earlier notes metamorphosed into a tranquil acceptance. The ultimate footnote simply stated, "To comprehend time, one must first step beyond its confines. You who peruse these words, you have already embarked on the journey." Upon lifting my gaze from the manuscript, I discerned a shift in the silence enveloping me. It felt profound, resonant, as though the very atmosphere had thickened with untold narratives. The shadows between the shelves ceased to be void, instead pulsating with subtle motion, akin to curtains swaying in an unseen breeze. Now I visit the library daily, though the precise moments of my arrival and departure elude me. The manuscript remains in its original place, yet its contents flux and metamorphose with each perusal. Sometimes I catch fleeting glimpses of other readers at the periphery of my vision, scholars from diverse eras, all drawn to the enigmatic footnotes. We never exchange words, yet I sense their presence as faint echoes in my consciousness. The true essence of the manuscript remains elusive, but I've come to comprehend that certain enigmas are meant to be experienced rather than unraveled. Amidst the hushed interludes between the shelves, enveloped by the faint whispers of ancient pages, I've unearthed a distinct form of wisdom, one that dwells in the interstices between the known and the yet to be discovered. I persist in reading, and the footnotes persist in shepherding me through their labyrinth of significance. Perhaps, someday, you too will encounter this manuscript. When that moment arrives, remember that the profoundest mysteries are not those that enlighten us through revelation, but those that captivate us through the gentle art of pondering. Story 28. On a misty night by the coast, I ventured to an abandoned pier, reaching out into the dark, restless waters. Etched into a worn beam were intricate symbols softly glowing under the moon's pale gaze. The salty sea breeze whispered a hint of mystery, and as I traced the marks with my fingertips, I sensed a connection to a long-buried secret beneath the tides. The gentle rhythm of waves caressing weathered pillars drew me into a trance-like state of contemplation. Standing there, I felt the aged wood beneath me, murmuring with echoes of footsteps long gone by. The air carried the tang of salt and damp wood, mingled with a scent of ancient knowledge, evoking memories of forgotten tomes and hidden chambers. Night after night, I found myself drawn back to that pier, pulled by an inexplicable force. Each visit unveiled new nuances in the enigmatic symbols, curves that seemed to dance in the moon's glow, lines shifting to form different patterns with the ebb and flow of the tide. The soft creaking of the planks became a familiar companion, a dialogue between the sea and the structure daring to breach its realm. On my fifth visit, a peculiar discovery awaited. The air around the marked beam held a gentle warmth, contrasting the cool maritime breeze. When I touched the wood, a subtle pulsing warmth synchronized with my heartbeat, akin to holding a never-cooling cup of tea. The fog often thickened as I studied the symbols, enveloping me like a soft embrace. Within its shroud, sounds dulled, creating a cocoon where time moved at its own pace. Sometimes amidst the haze, I fancied hearing a soft hum harmonizing with the waves, a melody from the depths below. One tranquil night, as I sat beside the marked beam, I noticed the water below had stilled to a mirror-like surface, reflecting the moon's glow with unearthly clarity. Beneath that polished facade, shadows stirred with graceful intent, their forms elusive yet mesmerizing. The symbols began to infiltrate my dreams, morphing into maps of unseen lands or living script under my touch. I kept a journal, sketching the symbols as they appeared each night, noting their subtle changes with the moon's phases. Weeks passed, and I realized others at the pier remained oblivious to the markings. Even when I pointed them out, their gazes slid away, unseeing, as if the symbols were mere illusions. The turning point arrived with the new moon. In the absence of lunar light, the markings emitted a soft phosphorescence, casting a gentle blue-green glow like underwater currents. The warmth from the wood intensified. The humming beneath the pier grew clearer, carrying notes that hinted at an ancient tongue. Curious artifacts began appearing near the beam: spiraled stones, iridescent shell fragments, silver seaweed strands forming delicate patterns. Each item felt like a cryptic message, their meaning just beyond reach. Now, as I pen these words, I realize I've become entwined in this enigma. The symbols manifest in unexpected places, in mirror condensation, rain patterns on windows, cream swirls in morning coffee. They no longer seem mere symbols, but a language slowly unfolding, a conversation I'm learning to decipher. The pier transcends being a mere structure. It's a threshold, a boundary between known and unknown. The gentle mystery of the symbols unfurls, offering glimpses, but withholding its full truth, beckoning me back night after night to where the mundane meets the profound, the ancient and the infinite. I've come to accept that some mysteries are meant to be felt rather than unraveled. The pier's markings have taught me to find solace in uncertainty, to embrace the gentle allure of the unknown. Sitting here now, as the fog blankets the world and the familiar warmth pulses beneath my touch, I understand my role in this ongoing tale. I'm not meant to decode this mystery, but to weave my narrative into its ancient fabric, adding a layer to the timeless story unfolding in this liminal space where land and sea converge. Story 29. In the quiet embrace of a local thrift store, I unearthed a forgotten treasure buried within a box of discarded art supplies. Nestled among the remnants of creativity, I stumbled upon a weathered sketchbook, its pages a tapestry of intricate blueprints depicting a structure unknown to me. The delicate scent of graphite and aged paper danced around me as I pored over the detailed designs, each line whispering of a hidden purpose that defied simple explanation. Night after night, I found myself drawn into the depths of the sketchbook's mysteries, my study bathed in the soft glow of a solitary desk lamp. Raindrops tapped gently against the window pane, weaving a soothing melody that harmonized with my exploration of the enigmatic blueprints. With every touch of my fingers tracing the intricate patterns, I uncovered anomalies that challenged the boundaries of traditional architecture. Curved corridors folded into themselves, staircases led to impossible rooms, and windows captured light from unearthly angles, all meticulously illustrated with a precision bordering on the mystical. The margins of the pages whispered fragments of faded ink, hinting at threshold spaces and liminal architecture, concepts that beckoned me into a realm of contemplative wonder. Lost in the spell of the drawings, I began to sketch my own interpretations, seeking to unravel the underlying philosophy that breathed life into the mysterious geometries. The scratch of my pencil against paper became a meditative dance, blurring the lines between reality and imagination as I surrendered to the guidance of an unseen hand. As days melted into nights, subtle shifts in my perception of space began to unfold. Shadows deepened, corners curved, and the language of the house itself seemed to echo the architectural symphony of the blueprints. Moonlight whispered secrets through the curtains, unveiling a hidden sequence of numbers that pulsed with a cryptic allure, like a mathematical sonnet woven into the fabric of the sketches. In the realm of dreams, I roamed the labyrinthine corridors of the structure, each step a melody in the symphony of its design. The central chamber, adorned with symbols of celestial beauty, beckoned me to unravel its mysteries, each iteration of my sketches a futile attempt to capture its elusive essence. In the stillness of my study, where shadows danced with the branches outside my window, I pondered the enigma laid before me. Was I unraveling a tapestry of existence that transcended the mundane world, a realm of architecture that whispered its secrets only in moments of perfect tranquility? The identity of the architect remained a mystery, their presence lingering in the echoes of every line and note inscribed within the sketchbook. I came to see the blueprints not as mere plans, but as a map of the ethereal spaces that dwell in the margins of our reality, the dreamscapes we catch glimpses of in fleeting moments of serenity. As I pen these words by lamplight, the weight of the sketchbook resting on my desk, I embrace the unresolved mysteries that linger in the air like a half-remembered dream. The rain sings its lullaby against the window, and the shadows pulse with silent energy, reminding me of the beauty found in the unknown, in the spaces between thoughts where magic lies dormant, waiting to be awakened. Story 30. In a leisurely stroll through a historic neighborhood, I stumbled upon an ancient iron gate adorned with intricate carvings. Despite the erosion of time, the delicate patterns and symbols seemed to narrate a story of love and loss. The gate emitted a faint scent of rust, blending with the crisp breeze, as I trailed my fingertips along the weathered metal, sensing a narrative waiting to be unveiled, engraved in every curve and crevice. The evening air carried the soft murmur of autumn leaves, while gentle golden light filtered through the canopy above. Standing by the gate, I observed how the dwindling sunlight accentuated the deeper grooves of the engravings, casting shifting shadows that danced before my eyes. The metal felt cool to the touch, its texture weathered by years of exposure. There was an allure to the patterns that drew me in. They were not mere adornments, but intricate symbols forming an elegant script, intertwined with motifs of vines and blossoms. Tracing the elegant curves with my finger, a subtle warmth spread through my hand, contrasting the gate's cold exterior. It was a sensation akin to touching a sun-warmed stone. Beyond the gate, a path led into shadowy gardens. Majestic trees arched overhead, their branches swaying in the evening breeze. The air carried a blend of earthy scents from fallen leaves, intermingled with hints of old roses or lavender, though no flowers were in sight. Each time I tried to step away, a new detail captivated my gaze. A spiraling design in the metalwork seemed to beckon me further, creating an endless cascade leading back to a worn heart-shaped motif, bearing two sets of initials and a faint date. As dusk descended, the atmosphere shifted, and the engraving seemed to morph and transform under the growing shadows. What appeared as vines now resembled written words in an unknown script. Lost in the mesmerizing patterns, I swayed slightly until the tap of my umbrella against the gate, unnoticed until then, broke the trance. The sound echoed with an ethereal quality, resonating like a bell beneath the surface of water. In that moment, a response, more felt than heard, emanated from the depths of the garden beyond. It could have been the wind or something beyond earthly senses. The engravings on the gate narrated fragmented scenes, a couple embracing, a garden in bloom, the same garden in winter's embrace. These scenes flowed seamlessly, connected by sweeping lines that transcended time, hinting at memories and desires. Time itself seemed fluid in this place, with streetlights casting a warm glow on the metal's patina, unveiling hidden details within the intricate carvings. The tale unfolded of two lovers who once tended the garden beyond. Their names lost to history, their story endured, immortalized in iron and rust. Together, they had nurtured something beautiful, enduring through seasons of change and transformation. Their love, depicted in the engravings, had transcended time, evolving into a timeless essence captured in metal. As I stood there enveloped by the passage of time, I realized the gate was more than a mere entrance. It was a tribute, a declaration of love preserved in iron to withstand centuries. The weathered heart at its core symbolized not decay but resilience, a testament to enduring love. Though details faded, the essence remained, touching all who paused to ponder, to marvel, to feel. A distant church bell tolled, blending with the soft whispers of the evening wind. With one last glance at the gate, knowing I would return, I understood it would never reveal itself the same way twice. As I turned to depart, my fingers grazed the heart-shaped motif one final time, feeling a gentle warmth pulsate through the metal, like a heartbeat frozen in time, echoing through the years. The story of the gate lingered with me as I journeyed home through the dimming twilight. I realized then that some tales were not meant to be fully understood. They were meant to be experienced, resonating in the space between certainty and wonder, between sight and belief. The faded engravings had imparted their message, guarding deeper mysteries within their iron confines. Story 31. In the depths of the attic, amidst forgotten relics of the past, a hidden canvas awaited my discovery. Tucked behind a weathered trunk, the painting beckoned with an air of mystery. It depicted a figure caught in the delicate dance of transformation, a play of light and shadow that stirred something familiar deep within me. The attic exhaled the scent of aged paper and memories long faded, wrapping me in a cocoon of nostalgia. As I studied the canvas, the brushstrokes whispered tales of the artist's intent, leaving me transfixed. Seated upon a worn wooden chair, I watched as dust motes pirouetted in a sunbeam that sneaked through the attic window, casting a soft glow upon the enigmatic portrait. Its edges blurred into the raw canvas, blurring the lines between reality and imagination. The face on the canvas held me in its gaze, drawing me closer with eyes that seemed to hold untold secrets. The house murmured around me, its ancient timbers offering a gentle lullaby as I delved deeper into the painting's mysteries. Tracing the frame with my fingertips, I felt the weight of years etched into its grain, a silent witness to the passage of time. With the approaching dusk, a golden light bathed the attic, casting elongated shadows across the floor. The air grew cooler, carrying the promise of autumn on its breath through a crack in the window. In the dimming light, I found myself drawn to converse with the portrait, as if it held the key to unlocking hidden truths. In the twilight, the painting seemed to come alive, its brushstrokes shifting and morphing with each passing moment. I noticed a peculiar phenomenon. The lines changed direction subtly, revealing different emotions depending on the angle of view. It was as though the portrait held multiple narratives within its unfinished form, waiting to be deciphered. Lost in a timeless reverie, I uncovered a faded inscription behind the canvas. "Remember, the light changes everything." The words, penned with dreamlike elegance, resonated with a haunting familiarity, binding me closer to the unknown artist. Gathering old journals and photographs, I surrounded the portrait, hoping to unravel its enigma, yet the answers remained elusive. Night after night, I sought solace in the attic, under the soft glow of moonlight that caressed the canvas. Whispered melodies seemed to emanate from the incomplete spaces, weaving a tapestry of forgotten dreams and unspoken desires. The portrait became a mirror of my soul, reflecting emotions long buried beneath the surface. With each visit, the painting revealed new facets of itself, mirroring my innermost thoughts and musings. The eyes, ever watchful, mirrored my shifting moods, a silent companion in the quiet hours of the night. I shared my stories with the portrait, confiding in its silent presence, as if it held the key to unlocking my own mysteries. As the seasons ebbed and flowed outside the attic window, a realization dawned upon me. The portrait remained unfinished by design. It existed in a perpetual state of becoming, a canvas of endless possibilities that transcended time and space. The artist had captured a moment of eternal transformation, inviting viewers to partake in the journey of self-discovery. I embraced my role as the guardian of the portrait, cherishing its incompleteness as a symbol of endless potential. The attic transformed into a sanctuary where past and present intertwined, blurring the boundaries of reality and imagination. I ascended the creaking stairs, a silent pilgrim to this shrine of enigma, where silence spoke louder than words. Years drifted by, yet my bond with the portrait remained unbroken. I chronicled the nuances of light and shadow that danced across the canvas, each moment a testament to its ever-evolving nature. The mystery persisted, not as a riddle to be solved, but as a journey to be savored, a quiet meditation in the dust-filled attic, where time stood still and the heart found solace in the whispers of the past. Story 32. In the dimming glow of twilight, amid the labyrinth of city streets, a peculiar verse caught my eye, etched upon a weathered brick wall. The words, faint yet melodic, seemed to hum with a mysterious harmony that resonated deep within. As the cool evening air carried hints of rain and concrete, it felt as though the very essence of the city was whispering an ancient secret meant for only the most attentive souls. Intrigued, I drew closer to the wall, running my fingers over the aged bricks. The verses seemed to pulsate beneath my touch, their ink existing in a realm between the present and the past, neither completely faded nor freshly inscribed. A gentle breeze drifted through the narrow alleyway, carrying with it the soft rustling of fallen leaves and echoes of distant memories. It was then that I noticed the enigmatic pattern woven into the rhyme. Each line appeared to be penned in a different hand, as if multiple voices had contributed to its creation over time. Some letters flowed in elegant cursive, while others stood rigid and precise, yet somehow they blended together in an eerie harmony. The street lamps flickered to life, casting a warm glow that danced across the wall, painting gentle shadows in the growing darkness. Pulling out my phone to shed light on the text, a strange phenomenon unfolded before my eyes. The words seemed to shift and rearrange themselves under the artificial glow, playing tricks on my perception. Blinking in disbelief, I endeavored to commit the verses to memory. Each line settled into my mind effortlessly, as if they had always resided there, waiting to be recalled rather than learned anew. The rhyme spoke of shadows walking beside us, of memories dwelling in the spaces between moments, and of a melody only the walls could perceive. Night after night, the wall beckoned me back. Whether in dreams or wakefulness, the verses would surface in my thoughts, their presence undeniable. I observed others passing by, their hands caressing the bricks just as mine had done, pausing momentarily with distant gazes as if attuned to a melody beyond my grasp. With the passage of weeks, similar verses began to appear on various walls across the city, each connected like threads in an endless tapestry. The handwriting styles remained consistent, a collective of authors spreading their cryptic message throughout the urban landscape. I documented each discovery, capturing images that always seemed slightly blurred, as if resisting being fully captured. Delving deeper into this enigma, subtle shifts in perception began to unfold. Street sounds morphed into rhythmic melodies, the hum of traffic evolving into distant harmonies. Even the rain assumed a musical quality, tapping out messages in a cryptic code that teased at understanding. On tranquil nights, I would stand before the original wall, the verses entrenched in that liminal space between reality and reverie. Occasionally, strangers would join me, drawn by an inexplicable force, sharing in a silent communion of wonder and curiosity. The rhyme hinted at a time when cities were living entities, when walls held memories and streets echoed with the footsteps of countless souls. It whispered of a hidden realm intertwined with our own, visible only to those willing to pause and listen. Some evenings, a soft hum seemed to emanate from the very bricks, a lullaby woven of urban echoes and forgotten dreams. As the seasons shifted, the words adapted to their surroundings. In summer's heat, they shimmered like mirages on the horizon. During autumn rains, they flowed like liquid, on the verge of cascading down the wall. Winter frost adorned each letter with delicate patterns, catching the feeble sunlight in crystalline embrace. To this day, I revisit the wall, though the verses have long been committed to memory. Subtle additions occasionally manifest, new lines interwoven among the old, the family of handwriting expanding with each passing day. The mystery of the rhyme persists, each reader affected in a unique manner, some departing with serene smiles, others bearing a pensive gaze that lingers. Many return repeatedly, as if drawn by an unspoken pact, a shared acknowledgement that there is always more to unravel within those aged words. The enigma endures, and perhaps that is as it should be. Amid a world where technology and science unravel countless secrets, solace is found in the knowledge that mysteries persist within the shadows, within the whispers of brick and mortar, within the enduring echoes of words that defy complete comprehension. As night descends and the city's nocturnal symphony unfolds, I ponder the unknown authors whose script adorns the wall. Do they still wander amongst us, adding to their never-ending poem? Do they, like me, seek solace in touching the bricks, listening for that elusive melody? Perhaps we have crossed paths on the bustling streets, united by invisible bonds of shared perception, all participants in a narrative that eternally scripts itself in the margins of our urban reality. Story 33. In the hush of a tranquil afternoon, saunter through a neglected courtyard, a peculiar fragrance captivated my senses. It was a heady, spicy aroma, out of sync with the surrounding decay, a blend of exotic spices and aged stone carried on a gentle breeze, as if whispering secrets to me. Each step drew me closer to the source, an unspoken invitation to unravel the enigma veiled within this unexpected scent. The courtyard, a hidden sanctuary forgotten by time, was embraced by weathered walls cloaked in ancient ivy. Autumn winds rustled fallen leaves over worn flagstones, crafting a soft melody that intertwined with the mysterious perfume. Sunlight filtered through the canopy above, casting intricate shadows that waltzed languidly across the ground. Deeper into the sanctuary, the air shifted subtly, the spicy fragrance growing more potent near a weathered wooden door in a corner, etched with faded patterns of yesteryears. The scent stirred memories just beyond reach, fleeting recollections of childhood winters or dreams on the cusp of waking. A stone bench beckoned me, its surface smoothed by years of rain and wind, yet strangely warm to the touch. Seated upon it, the fragrance pulsed gently, akin to a distant heartbeat, an oddly comforting sensation amidst the peculiar surroundings. Details once overlooked now caught my eye. Intricate symbols at the column bases, their meanings lost to time, seemingly moving with the shifting light, ivy trembling without a breeze. Time itself seemed to ebb differently in that space, shadows stretching at an unusual pace, minutes slipping through my grasp like sand. The fragrance led me on an invisible journey, weaving through hints of cinnamon, whispers of cardamom, and echoes of ancient mysteries. One twilight, an elderly gardener materialized, tending to foliage in a distant corner. When questioned about the scent, she merely smiled knowingly, cryptically remarking, "Some places hold memories we've forgotten." Vanishing behind a hedge, her words lingered in the air, leaving me to ponder her cryptic message. The mystery deepened as mysterious objects appeared on the bench during my visits, oddities that vanished by the next visit, replaced by new enigmas. Weeks turned to months, and the courtyard became a daily pilgrimage. The fragrance a constant companion, ever evolving yet unchanging at its core. Flickers of movement danced at the edge of vision, fleeting and intangible. A silent evening bathed in amber hues revealed fragrant smoke spiraling from between flagstones, forming ephemeral shapes akin to letters before dissipating into the night. The smoke bore the same spicy essence, but intensified, drawing me closer to a profound connection. A brief touch sparked visions of bygone souls, each entwined in the courtyard's mystique, their stories interwoven with mine in a tapestry of shared secrets beyond time's grasp. As winter approached, the aroma shifted once more, growing elusive yet retaining its allure. The courtyard's essence transformed with the colder months, yet the mystery endured, unveiling itself only at dawn, dusk, and those timeless moments when the world seemed to pause. To this day I return to the courtyard, the fragrance a familiar presence with an elusive origin. Just when I believe I am near a revelation, it eludes me, offering new layers of intrigue. And perhaps therein lies the beauty. Some mysteries are meant to be felt, embraced, and cherished like treasured whispers. The gardener's words resound in the stillness. Some places hold memories we've forgotten. In quiet reverie on the ancient bench, amidst the enigmatic scent, I ponder if it's not the place remembering, but the memories themselves, seeking a willing listener to share their untold tales. Story 34. Deep within the shadowy depths of a revered library, I stumbled upon a hidden alcove nestled behind towering shelves of ancient manuscripts. The faint glow seeping through a weathered window unveiled a collection of dusty tomes and artifacts that murmured tales of forgotten wisdom. The air was thick with the aroma of aged paper and leather bindings, enveloping me in a sense of reverence, as if I had stumbled upon a sacred refuge reserved for the most inquisitive of spirits. As the appointed night guardian of the library, I had grown accustomed to the gentle rhythm of its nocturnal symphony, the soft creaking of wooden shelves, the whisper of wind weaving through time-worn ventilation shafts, and the distant echo of the grand clock in the main hall. But this particular nook held an inexplicable allure, as though it existed in a realm untouched by the constraints of modernity, cocooned within its own pocket of existence. Each night, drawn to this enigmatic space during my rounds, I observed the moonlight painting intricate patterns through a leaded glass window, casting dancing shadows that seemed to form cryptic symbols on the aged wooden floor, reminiscent of long-forgotten languages. In moments of profound stillness, I fancied I could discern the faint rustle of pages turning, though I was always alone in this secluded enclave. One fateful night, while perusing the books lining the walls of my sanctuary, I discerned a peculiar pattern in their arrangement. The supple leather spines, smoothed by centuries of handling, appeared to weave a cryptic tapestry when viewed from certain angles. The varying heights, subtle hues, and meticulous positioning hinted at a deliberate order beyond mere chance. Intrigued, I devoted more time to studying these ancient volumes, meticulously documenting their positions and the interplay of moonlight upon them as night unfurled its mysteries. My flashlight would occasionally catch glimpses of gilded lettering that seemed to shift with the passage of time, revealing fragments of text in unfamiliar tongues. With each passing night, the atmosphere within the nook grew heavier, pregnant with the weight of untold narratives waiting to be unraveled. During my exploration, I stumbled upon a singular tome that exuded a warmth as if freshly handled by another seeker of knowledge. Its pages lay blank, yet beneath the beam of my flashlight at the stroke of midnight, elusive script flickered into view, elusive and ever-changing, like wisps of a fading dream. The toll of the grand clock marked the hours as I delved deeper into the enigma of the nook, noting subtle shifts, books subtly rearranged, the window framing unworldly vistas of the night sky, and an uncanny sensation of a presence lingering just beyond my peripheral vision. My fellow guardians remarked upon the transformation overtaking me, the ease with which I spoke of the library's past, the comprehension of archaic languages unlearned, and the visions that haunted my dreams, expanding the boundaries of the library's physical realm. The zenith of my discovery arrived one winter night beneath a full moon, when clarity cleaved the night air. Seated in my customary spot, a book descended from its shelf, unfurling its pages before me. Within its illuminated script lay a chronicle of a clandestine fellowship of librarians who purportedly harnessed the ability to immortalize knowledge, not solely in words, but within the very essence of the cosmos. They had crafted sanctuaries akin to my nook, sacred repositories where the lines blurred between reader and text, past and present. In that moment of revelation, I comprehended that I had become a part of a tapestry woven across ages. The nook had beckoned me as it had beckoned others, beckoning me into a tradition that spanned epochs. The whispers I perceived were not mere echoes of an aging edifice, but the collective voices of countless seekers who had ventured into this very space, contributing their insights to the vast reservoir of wisdom housed within these hallowed walls. Now, as I pen this testament, bathed in the soft radiance of my flashlight, I acknowledge the futility of fully grasping the enigma of this place. The nook remains an enigma, its revelations unfolding in their own time, akin to words materializing upon seemingly blank pages. Yet within this uncertainty, I find solace in the knowledge that within the recesses of this ancient library lies a realm where reality wavers, where knowledge flows ceaselessly, and where the act of reading transcends the confines of time and space. I continue my nightly vigil, safeguarding both the library and its concealed wonders. The nook lingers patiently in its corner, awaiting the next intrepid soul who stumbles upon its threshold. And on nights when the moon hangs low and the hush of silence deepens, I swear I can discern the gentle rustle of pages turning, as though unseen readers partake in my watch, united by the eternal enchantment of words and the mysteries they enshroud. Story 35. Amidst the forgotten treasures tucked away in the shadows of my home, I stumbled upon a locked drawer nestled within an ancient desk. With a touch of determination, the drawer yielded to my efforts, revealing a delicate note tucked inside. Its weathered paper exuded a faint aroma of cedar and thyme, its elegant script hinting at untold secrets from the house's past. As I unfolded the fragile parchment with care, a hushed rustle filled the room, blending seamlessly with the soft glow of evening light filtering through lace curtains. The note bore a date of yesteryears, beginning with the words, "My dearest friend," and delved into confessions that had long been kept hidden. Each sentence wove a tapestry of intrigue, recounting peculiar occurrences within the very walls that surrounded me. Whispers in empty corridors, objects shifting without cause, and the mysterious appearance of fresh blooms in a vase under the full moon's watchful eye. Lost in the narrative, I found myself drawn deeper into a world where secrets lay hidden behind walls that bore witness to lifetimes of whispered tales. The author spoke of a concealed chamber, a sanctuary of memories veiled from prying eyes, where the essence of time itself seemed to linger. The rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock echoed through the room, its pendulum swaying in a hypnotic dance as I journeyed through the writer's words. Within the hidden chamber, the author had uncovered a journal brimming with the echoes of past inhabitants, their dreams and conversations transcending the boundaries of time. As twilight descended outside, I kindled an antique lamp, casting a warm glow upon the pages that revealed a cryptic tale of symbols etched into the house's very framework. These intricate marks, once dismissed as mere ornamentation, held the key to unlocking the chamber's enigmatic doorway. Tracing the lines of the writer's musings, I learned of the moon's influence on the symbols, their significance waxing and waning with each lunar phase. The whispers of the wind outside wove a soothing melody, painting dancing shadows upon the walls, as the house itself seemed to stir with memories of ages past. The writer's dreams, more memory than fantasy, unveiled visions of a woman in a blue gown, her silent presence a harbinger of untold truths waiting to be revealed. As I reached the note's conclusion, a riddle emerged, guiding those who listened with their hearts to a moment when time itself held its breath. The stroke of midnight ringing 13 times, the moonlight caressing the seventh step, heralding a path unseen to ordinary eyes. With bated breath, I absorbed the mysterious message, attuned to the subtle symphony of the house awakening around me. The note, unsigned, left me with a sense of wonder and anticipation, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Returning the paper to its resting place, I glanced at a faint sketch adorning its edge, a familiar pattern stirring distant memories within me. As dusk enveloped the room, I sensed a shift in the air, not of foreboding, but of a gentle awakening to the stories woven into the very fabric of the house. Every shadow, every creak, whispered of narratives untold, inviting me to delve deeper into the tapestry of secrets waiting to be unfurled. Leaving the drawer unlocked, I knew this was but the prologue to a grander mystery, unfolding like the gradual unveiling of dawn's light. Lost in contemplation, I pondered the possibility of dreaming of the woman in blue, her silent revelations echoing through the quiet hours of night. The grandfather clock's steady heartbeat continued its lullaby, joined by the distant tolling of a church bell marking the passage of time. Counting each chime, my thoughts lingered on the enigmatic note until the final echo faded into the stillness, leaving behind the phantom whisper of a blue dress brushing against the velvet silence of an empty room. Story 36. Delving into an abandoned mansion frozen in time, a peculiar hush enveloped me, whispering secrets of days long gone. In the grand entryway, where portraits gazed through veils of dust and drapes hung in tatters, the silence pulsed with a spectral vitality. Each creak of the aging floorboards and every sigh of the wind through shattered panes carried tales of yesteryears, beckoning me to listen. Sunlight bathed the scene in a melancholic glow, casting elongated shadows that waltzed over faded wallpaper. My soft footfalls resonated as I ventured further into the dwelling, the settling of dust particles in the air harmonizing with each step. The aroma of aged timber and forsaken memories mingled in the air I breathed, while the distant rustle of branches against glass windows set a subtle cadence in the tranquil air. A grand staircase, its splendor faded by time's touch, drew me closer, my hand trailing along the once lustrous banister. Yet a curious anomaly caught my eye. The dust beneath my fingertips vanished, leaving behind gleaming sections as if freshly polished. The wood exuded a warmth, a stark contrast to the mansion's pervasive chill. Ascending, I encountered a corridor flanked by closed doors. Here, the silence shifted, thick and laden with anticipation, akin to the pause between heartbeats. A subtle change in temperature accompanied my passage by each door. Some areas radiated gentle heat, while others cradled pockets of cool air, prompting me to draw my jacket tighter. One door stood slightly ajar, offering a glimpse into an ancient study bathed in the amber hues of twilight. Books adorned the walls, their spines faded, yet hinting at the wisdom within. A massive wooden desk dominated the room, its surface cloaked in a thin layer of dust, save for one pristine circle, a perfect anomaly, as if something had been recently moved. As I approached, the floorboards sighed beneath my weight, the chair angled as if its occupant had just departed. Within the dust-free circle, a ghostly script emerged, visible only in the right light, bearing the cryptic message, "We never truly leave." The sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows across the study. In the gathering darkness, the room's ambience underwent a subtle metamorphosis. Invisible currents stirred the air, books rustled as if turned by phantom hands. Seating myself in the chair, I traced the grain of the desk, now swathed in a comforting warmth distinct from the mansion's cool dampness. Patterns emerged in the ambient sounds, a language just beyond my grasp, woven from creaking wood, distant winds, and shifting objects. Time lost its shape within those walls, minutes blending seamlessly into hours as I absorbed the ethereal tapestry. The encroaching night draped the study in a soothing embrace, the dancing dust particles creating fleeting images that defied focus. As darkness claimed the room, a subtle phenomenon unfolded. The dust-free circle on the desk emitted a faint rhythmic glow, pulsing like a breath, its warmth fluctuating with each beat. The words "we never truly leave" shimmered in the dimness. Compelled by an unseen force, I extended my hand to touch the glowing circle, and a profound serenity washed over me. The mansion's silence transmuted into a melodic symphony, a chorus of whispers and creaks imbued with newfound significance, recounting the tales of those who had dwelt here before me. When I rose to depart, I noticed my watch had ceased its ticking, the darkness now bearing a weighty presence rather than mere absence of light. Retracing my steps through the hallway and descending the stairs, I realized that the mansion's silence had never been empty. It brimmed with untold stories, yearning to be heard by an attentive ear. Often, I find myself daydreaming of revisiting that mansion, of sitting once more in that study as twilight descends. In the quietude of my own abode, I occasionally catch echoes of that musical silence, a reminder that spaces harbor more than memories. They cradle fragments of souls long past, lingering in the dust and shadows, awaiting a perceptive soul to acknowledge their enduring warmth. Story 37. In the early hours of the morning, when the world is still draped in a hushed serenity, I embarked on a tranquil stroll through a meadow untouched by the rush of the day. The grassy expanse glistened with dew, each droplet a tiny prism reflecting the first light of dawn. As I paused to marvel at nature's artistry, a peculiar sight met my eyes. The dew had coalesced into intricate letters, a language woven by the hand of the earth itself. The air was redolent with the fragrance of damp soil and wild blooms, a symphony of scents that whispered of secrets untold. It felt as though this ethereal script, this fleeting message etched upon the grass, was a clandestine gift meant solely for my eyes. The mist clung to the ground, casting a soft, pearly veil over the landscape, cocooning me in its tender embrace. Kneeling down to inspect the dew-kissed blades more closely, my every exhale sent ripples through the moist air, causing the letters to quiver and dance as if alive. Their forms were elusive, teasing comprehension with their elusive beauty. Each stroke and curve resembled the most exquisite calligraphy, crafted from liquid crystal and light. Day after day, I found myself drawn back to that meadow, compelled by an invisible force I could not explain. With each sunrise, fresh messages emerged, their meanings tantalizingly just beyond my grasp. The dew script evolved under the gentle caress of the sun, morphing from precise symbols into abstract designs that melded back into the verdant tapestry beneath my feet. Occasionally, foreign words, unfamiliar yet strangely recognizable, would materialize amidst the grass, their enigmatic shapes captivating my imagination. The rustle of the wind weaving through the tall stalks became a constant companion, harmonizing with the early chorus of birds heralding the new day. I meticulously transcribed these messages into a weathered journal, the pages bearing the faint impressions of moisture, as if preserving a memory of their watery origins. One mist-laden morning, a subtle shift caught my attention. The script now spiraled outward from a central point, unfurling into a mesmerizing mandala of language and symbols. A quiet energy charged the air, suffusing the meadow with a pregnant stillness, as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation. Goosebumps prickled my skin as I traced the intricate patterns with my gaze, trying to decipher their cryptic message. The revelations did not confine themselves to the meadow alone. I discovered them etched in the condensation on my window, perfectly aligned droplets forming words of unknown origin. They materialized in the wisps of steam rising from my morning tea, transient yet poignant before dissipating into the ether. Even the frost on autumn leaves bore traces of this enigmatic dialogue, a language of ice and air. In the realm of dreams, the scripts took on a life of their own, weaving through landscapes of shadow and light like liquid silver. They murmured secrets in voices woven from rustling leaves and the distant melody of wind chimes. Each dawn, I awoke with the fading echo of almost understanding, the elusive meaning slipping through my grasp like water seeping through cupped hands. The journal burgeoned with these revelations, its pages a testament to the gentle mystery that had woven itself into the fabric of my existence. Hours were spent comparing the patterns, noting their subtle cadence with the phases of the moon, the shifting seasons, the evolving light of morning. A profound rhythm began to emerge, as if the dew script were a part of a timeless dialogue between earth and sky, a silent conversation played out in moisture and light. As winter approached, the messages grew sparse, revealed only on the crispest of mornings when the air hung crystal clear and motionless. I cherished these fleeting moments all the more, knowing that each one might herald the onset of a dormant season. Frost etched its own variation of the script onto frozen blades of grass, a delicate tapestry of messages that glittered like diamonds under the pale winter sun. Years have passed since those initial encounters, yet I still return to the meadow, though the messages now appear with dwindling frequency. I ponder whether they were meant to guide me towards this state of tranquil observation, this profound appreciation of the quiet miracles of dawn. The dew still adorns the grass and leaves with its crystalline tears, and though the distinct letters have faded, I have learned to glean a different kind of wisdom from their intricate patterns, a reminder that not all mysteries need solving to be cherished. My journal rests upon my desk, its weathered pages brimming with the echoes of those early revelations. When I leaf through its worn leaves, I notice how the sketched patterns seem to shift and dance in the changing light, mirroring the fluidity of the dew script itself. Perhaps understanding was never the ultimate goal. Perhaps the true gift lay in those moments of silent wonder, in the art of pausing to witness the subtle enigmas of the world with patient, reverent eyes. The meadow stands as my sanctuary, a place where the boundary between the ordinary and the extraordinary blurs in the soft glow of dawn. Though the meaning of those crystalline messages may forever elude me, their presence has left an indelible imprint upon my soul, teaching me that some of life's most profound experiences arise not from grand revelations, but from the quiet unraveling of questions without answers. Story 38. In a hidden corner, I ascended a set of worn stone steps, drawn by a symbol etched deeply into the ancient surface. Bathed in a faint glow under the dappled light, the mark beckoned me with a mysterious allure. The air carried the earthy scent of moss-covered stone, intertwining with my growing sense of wonder. Pausing, I felt as though the symbol held a secret that had long been veiled by the passage of time. Its intricate design, a dance of swirling patterns and angular lines, seemed to shift subtly as I gazed upon it from different angles. Kneeling down to inspect it closer, the stone beneath my touch radiated unexpected warmth, defying the chill of the autumn air around me. A gentle breeze whispered through the surrounding trees, carrying fragrances of blooming flowers and decaying leaves. Each night, I found myself drawn back to those steps, mesmerized by how the fading sunlight caressed the weathered surface, causing the symbol to pulse with a soft inner light. The more I delved into its mysteries, the more peculiar details of the courtyard revealed themselves to me. The ivy creeping along the walls seemed to avoid the area around the marked step, creating a perfect circle of exposed stone. On silent evenings, a faint hum seemed to emanate from beneath the surface, a melody as distant as a whisper carried on the wind. One visit, I brought my sketchbook to capture the symbol's essence. As my hand traced its lines on paper, it moved with a fluid certainty, as if guided by unseen hands. The resulting drawing unveiled hidden details, tiny markings surrounding the main symbol, forming cryptic words in an unknown script. Strangely, upon returning the next day, those additional markings had subtly shifted, like stars in a slow celestial dance. As autumn waned, I timed my visits to coincide with sunset, when the golden hour cast long shadows across the courtyard. In that magical light, a revelation awaited me. At the precise angle of the sun, the symbol cast a shadow stretching towards a concealed alcove, a place previously unseen by my eyes. Within that hidden recess, obscured by shadows, lay a collection of similar marks, each distinct yet somehow linked to the original. With winter's approach, frost coating the world in crystal, I observed how the symbol resisted the icy embrace that enveloped the surrounding stone. While frost dusted the steps each morning, the marked area remained untouched, as if shielded by an inner warmth. On frosty nights, a delicate mist rose from the symbol, twirling into shapes resembling letters before vanishing into the wintry air. The symbol began to invade my dreams, morphing into gateways and paths leading to forgotten realms that slipped from memory upon waking. These dreams left me with a profound tranquility, despite their enigmatic nature. Awake, a melody foreign yet familiar lingered on my lips, a soft tune evoking the murmur of distant waves and winds sighing through ancient boughs. One twilight, as I sat upon the steps watching daylight fade, an elderly woman materialized in the courtyard. Her movements held a serene grace, her silver hair catching the waning light like strands of moonlight. Without words, she joined me, tracing the symbol with a weathered finger. The hum that often lingered in the air grew louder, and for a fleeting moment, the atmosphere shimmered with innumerable points of light, like stars plucked from the heavens. When I turned to address her, she vanished, leaving only a sense of profound connection to something ancient and boundless. In her absence, she left a smooth stone that fit snugly in my hand. Holding it to the fading light, I discerned a miniature version of the symbol etched into its surface. Now I continue my daily pilgrimages to the steps, the stone a comforting weight in my pocket, a tangible link to the enigma that captivated me. The mystery of the symbol endures, but I've come to realize that some enigmas are meant to be felt rather than unraveled, experienced rather than dissected. The mark on those weathered steps has become a portal to introspection, a gentle nudge reminding me that within the familiar lies a realm of magic and mystery, waiting for those who pause to perceive it. Sometimes in the hushed moments between light and shadow, I fancy I can discern the old woman's voice carried on the evening zephyrs, humming that haunting, captivating melody. Though the full significance of the symbol eludes me, a peculiar peace settles within me in its presence, a quiet assurance that not all enigmas demand solving to be cherished.